Chapter 1064. I. Lu Qianri, who insisted on using Chen Hao's name, could only say, I twice and did not say anything else. Was he going to challenge killing God Chen Hao alone? Just a moment ago, he was brimming with confidence and wished for nothing more than to slap the arrogant Chen Hao to death with a single slap. But at this moment, looking at Chen Hao's imposing body that had expanded by 10,000 times using the Great Change technique, the terrifying killing intent that was released, and the degree of madness that was driven by killing, all of this far exceeded his imagination. This was definitely not something he could deal with alone. He even suspected that it was possible for the 9 of them to join forces. Join forces? Give me the order. Go. Everyone go. Tyrants, those who retreat will die, and all 9 generations of your family will be exterminated. Boom. At this time, the Golden Dragon did not care about his reputation at all. Even if he could not figure out how Chen Hao could return and enter the 10-direction territory, he knew that the person in front of him was the real killing god Chen Hao. More than 10,000 years ago, he failed because of killing god Chen Hao. Today, more than 10,000 years later, when he was about to step into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, he encountered killing god Chen Hao again. It was as if it had long been destined that this would be the biggest obstacle, the biggest restraint, and the strongest opponent on his path of cultivation. Only by destroying it would he be able to eliminate the devil in his heart. And only by completely annihilating it would he be able to realize his ambitions and aspirations. However, he had no confidence in Chen Hao's aura at this moment. If he rushed forward, he would be looking for trouble. Therefore, without any hesitation, the Golden Dragon took the lead and issued an order to the tyrant's cultivators. It was the most ruthless order. What did it mean to exterminate all 9 generations of your family? It was not just the life and death of one person, but the life and death of an entire family, a sect, and the life and death of all your family and friends. The Golden Dragon was the commander of the tyrants in the 10-direction territory. When the 9 galaxies formed an alliance in the outside world this time, the 9 commanders had absolute control. Therefore, when he said that he would exterminate all 9 generations of his family, it was not an exaggeration. It would be carried out by the Galaxy Masters. Even he is afraid. Lu Qian was truly shocked. Just now, he had only been a little skeptical about whether the 9 of them could take down Chen Hao. Now there was no longer any doubt. Since the Golden Dragon had given such an order, it was either that he was not confident or did not have the ability to do it. Otherwise, with the Golden Dragon's self-restraint, how could he send the tyrant's cultivators to their deaths? Celestials, listen to my orders. Attack. Anyone who disobeys will be executed. Lu Qianri also issued the order after a brief moment of shock. Heavenly Fiend Race, listen up. Attack. Dark Demon Clan, heed my command. Spare no expense. Soon after, the commanders of the 9 galaxies gave the order to fight to the death. Go. The leader of the army controlled the situation level by level, crazily forcing his subordinates to attack. This was undoubtedly a tragedy for many people. Moreover, everyone knew that those who went up first would definitely be cannon fodder. But now there was nothing they could do. Otherwise, he would probably be killed by the powerful army leaders around him. After that, countless Xeno-race cultivators let out frenzied roars as they charged towards Chen Hao, who was like a towering devil god, with the resolve to die. It was only a vacuum of tens of millions of miles. Countless cultivators of the alien races, who were willing to sacrifice themselves, released their strongest divine powers and laws. This was the only way they might have a chance to survive. At this time, the cultivators of the alien races who were lucky enough not to rush to the front line were all praying in their hearts that they could kill Chen Hao with one blow. At the same time, everyone finally understood how terrifying Chen Hao, the god of killing, was. He alone made the Golden Dragon, who was known as the most powerful person in the chaotic universe. And the other 8 commanders abandoned their pride and dignity. They did not dare to fight him, and instead asked everyone to attack him together. What did that mean? Senior brother. Pan Long's blood was boiling. Unfortunately, it was only in his mind. Without a physical body, how could he get blood? But at this moment he was undoubtedly excited to the extreme. He who was addicted to fighting had never thought of challenging the alliance of the 9 galaxies alone. What kind of heroism was this? What kind of strength was this? He wanted to rush out. He wanted to, but he knew that he could not add to the trouble at this time. Chun Ling and Li Yang, whose souls were entangled together, were dumbfounded when Chen Hao uttered the word Lin and formed the mysterious hand seal at the same time. Was he really obsessed with killing? Army. Boom. Chi 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 chi. Aha! When countless cultivators charged at Chen Hao like locusts with terrifying power, Chen Hao's huge body did not move at all. He opened his mouth, and with a roar he shot out another syllable. The pure sound wave directly caused the cultivators at the front to explode and die. The ones behind were like locusts that had suddenly been burned by fire, and they fell from the sky, screaming miserably. Buzz. Buzz buzz buzz. At this moment, Chen Hao formed another mysterious hand seal with his hands and merged with the word army. Great Vajra will seal. Become a weapon and command all the divine weapons in the world. Almost in an instant, those cultivators who had exploded, fallen, and were charging towards Chen Hao felt that the divine weapons, which were one with their minds, suddenly trembled and were cut off from their divine thoughts. The divine weapons violently flew out of their hands and attacked them. Fighting. The battle character art exploded out right after. At this moment, Chen Hao finally moved. The instant his hand seal was formed, his body that was like a mountain suddenly shook, and his battle intent and slaughter intent abruptly soared by a large amount. Boom. His entire body turned into a fiery red waterfall, crushing the void and charging toward the direction of the Golden Dragon and the other 8 commanders. Go go all of you go. Roar. The Golden Dragon roared, and his body swelled crazily at this moment. The other 8 experts also raised their strength to the peak, but like the Golden Dragon, they did not take a step forward. Boom. Boom boom boom. Ah ah ah. Blood rained down from the sky, and the blood-curdling screams of pigs being slaughtered sounded one after another. Facing the cultivators who were forced to block Chen Hao's path, Chen Hao punched and kicked, turning them into minced meat. It was not enough to describe how he killed 10 people in one step. Join hands and form a divine ability, combine your strength. Kill. Kill kill kill. At the beginning, the foreign race cultivators were completely cannon fodder, but after thousands of them were killed by Chen Hao in an instant, they finally understood that rushing forward like a swarm of bees was not enough, and was completely courting death. Therefore, it quickly became hundreds and thousands of people. They all gathered their strength and worked together to form an extremely terrifying attack. It was also at this moment that the effect appeared. Chen Hao's figure that was advancing at high speed like a cannonball was finally blocked and slowed down. Third update, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1065. Chen Hao could have dodged their attacks and used the great teleportation technique to enter the crowd and kill them all. However, Chen Hao did not do that. Chaos. That would only happen when the 9 commanders started to panic. The murderous will permeated his entire body, and his beer was tainted. Naturally, he went into a murderous frenzy, but he controlled it to the right level. The mantra of 9 syllables contained in the outline of the Great Way, the Lin formula, restricted this delicate balance. His mind was filled with endless murderous thoughts, but he was abnormally clear-headed. He knew very well that there was a limit to one person's power. It was impossible to kill all the alien races at once. However, the 9 great commanders had to die today. None of them could escape. When they were not panicking, which meant that they could not escape, since the other party wanted to send these cannon fodders to their deaths, why should he not? The tyrants, deities, insects, heavenly demons, dark demons, winged demons, goblins, elves and ghost race took turns to attack. One wave was killed, and the next wave charged forward. Chen Hao reaped life after life coldly and mercilessly. His enormous body had long since been stained with blood, and covered with shocking wounds under the increasingly close and powerful attacks of his opponents. However, he, who seemed to have entered a state of obsession with killing, did not notice it at all. Kill. 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 Only kill. Blood dyed the surrounding thousands of miles red. Blood flowed like rivers and white bones formed mountains. The god of killing Chen Hao moved slower and slower. However, he stepped on the eerie white bones and moved forward step by step with determination. When tens of thousands of alien race cultivators were killed, the lucky ones who had not entered the battlefield were already terrified. Their legs and stomachs were trembling. When the number exceeded 100,000, some of the cultivators who were forced to enter the battlefield directly collapsed under the instinctive desire to win. They screamed and wanted to disobey orders to escape, but they were immediately killed by the leaders of the alien race army. No one could retreat. Go, go, those who retreat will die. Do you see? He's getting weaker and weaker. Your deaths are worth it. Die for the glory of your race. Kill, kill, kill. The 9 great commanders, including the Golden Dragon, were extremely shocked. What kind of monster was this? Even the Golden Dragon felt a chill run down his spine. Who was the Golden Dragon? The Shao clan's patriarch. He really couldn't figure out how a cultivator from the Daluo Golden Wonderland could be so powerful. Previously, when he thought that it was impossible for the god of slaughter Chen Hao to appear in the ancient chaos Great Thousand World, he also thought that even if the god of slaughter Chen Hao returned and reached the same level as him, he would not be a match for him. This was because the current him was different from the Xiao Yan of the past. Xiao Yan's heaven-defying 10 lives-defying heavens was simply a shortcut to the heaven-defying path. Now, because of the destruction of Xiao Yan, Meng Hao gained enlightenment, and gained new enlightenment regarding the true 10th anima. He had truly broken through the limits of numbers, and was able to create the true 10th anima. This was definitely not something that Xiao Yan could compare to. The Golden Dragon, was named after the ancestor of the Xiao clan had comprehended the mysteries of Xiao Yan's golden scale dragon transformation. The difference between Xiao Yan of the past and the current Golden Dragon was the difference between a golden scale dragon and a golden scale dragon. But now, the god of slaughter Chen Hao had returned. The aura that he released at the beginning made him understand that he was no match for the god of slaughter Chen Hao. Even he couldn't kill more than 100,000 cultivators in one go. Fortunately, as the battle continued, the injuries on Chen Hao's huge body became more and more serious. Although the will of slaughter he displayed became more and more terrifying, his battle strength continued to weaken. This caused the Golden Dragon's shocked expression to gradually ease, and it turned into a boundless coldness. An ant can kill an elephant, ha ha ha. God of slaughter Chen Hao, so what if you're strong? Today is the day you die. No one can save you. The Golden Dragon roared as he watched Chen Hao grow weaker and weaker. Phew. At this time, Lu Qianye and the other great commanders, who had been in a tense state, let out a long sigh of relief. They were shocked to find that their backs were already drenched in cold sweat. He's too strong. God of slaughter Chen Hao. Is he really just Daluo Jingxian? He's definitely stronger than the invincible Supreme Hongmeng. I wanted to fight him one-on-one. Lu Qianye shuddered at the thought of it. Go, go, go. Victory is in sight. Masters, there's no need to sacrifice too many people. The Golden Dragon suddenly shouted again. Immediately, the 8 great commanders also gave out orders. At this point, even they didn't want to send the cultivators of the same clan to their deaths. It was undoubtedly the best to let the masters fight. Boom, boom, boom. Kill, kill, kill. Tens of thousands of masters in the army made their moves at this moment. Although they had long been frightened by Chen Hao's heaven-defying strength, now, no matter how strong God of slaughter Chen Hao was, he was an arrow at the end of its flight. It was undoubtedly a very lucky thing to be able to kill such a terrifying existence. Even if it was like an ant biting an elephant to death. Roar! Right at this moment, Chen Hao let out a furious roar towards the sky. OM! Suddenly, his entire body shook, and his enormous body instantly returned to its original size. The countless shocking injuries on his body had shockingly vanished completely as he returned to his original form. Qi. With a flash of light between his eyebrows, Chen Hao's hands suddenly put on a trap that bloomed with a terrifying aura. At the same time, the Overlord Spear's domineering aura spread out. Qi. Immediately, Chen Hao's figure suddenly flashed and disappeared into thin air. The great teleportation technique. What? The 8 commanders who had just relaxed and their minds had become a little more agile from their sluggish state, suddenly let out a cry of surprise. With a boom, They once again frantically roused their energy. As for the golden dragon, it rose into the air at an extremely terrifying speed with a whoosh. Die. Chi. In an instant he crossed tens of millions of miles. The dazzling spear light seemed to cut through the void, and appeared directly with Chun Hao's cold voice. Ah. Boom. The Goblin Clan commander, who reacted a little slower than the Golden Dragon and the other 7 great commanders, was suddenly enveloped by a terrifying soul pressure. He used all his strength and completely subconsciously burst out a heart-wrenching cry to meet the spear light that seemed to break through the void. Boom boom boom. In this short moment, everyone saw the Goblin Clan commander being pierced between his eyebrows by the spear, and then exploding to death. Then, like a flash flood erupting and the collapse of stars, the entire space was annihilated. Amidst the mushroom cloud of terrifying energy explosion, a ray of resplendent spear aura suddenly shot out, blinding everyone's eyes. Innumerable sounds of people sucking in cold air and falling to the ground due to fright spread out. Don't even think about escaping. Seal. Chun Hao's voice, which seemed to come from the depths of hell, resounded between heaven and earth. At this moment, the Golden Dragon revealed a horrified expression, and the 7 great commanders, who thought that they had avoided Chun Hao's sudden attack, suddenly screamed in horror. 4th update, requesting monthly votes. Wuxian will continue. Please everyone, monthly votes. Chapter 1066. Chi. As Chun Hao uttered the word seal, the magnificent vitality and green light spurted out of his glabella like green tentacles that slithered forward and twisted the time and space. At this moment, the time and space within hundreds of millions of kilometers seemed to have come to a standstill. Only the green tentacles that looked like snakes and dragons spread out crazily from Chun Hao's glabella, and instantly covered the sky and the sun, engulfing the entire space. Dash! Screams of terror, cries of despair, and frenzied and desperate shouts resounded throughout the world after a brief moment of silence. When some people were entangled by the tentacles, their minds were destroyed by the murderous will contained in them. Other than screaming and crazily struggling to release energy, they couldn't even remember to use their ultimate techniques. Instantly, their arms, legs, and heads disappeared one after another, as if they had been melted into the tentacles. Some people unleashed even more powerful strength in their panic, and tried to flee into the distance. There were also some people who frantically protected themselves. They unleashed their divine abilities at all costs to block the tentacles that blotted out the sky and seemed to be able to devour everything. A few people made the wisest decision in the blink of an eye. They detonated their bodies and fled to the periphery with their souls that were multiple times faster than their bodies. The Golden Dragon and the 7 commanders, on the other hand, bombarded the tentacles that were close to them violently and fled at high speed. However, no matter how fast they fled, the tentacles that seemed to be growing in the wind got farther and farther away from Chun Hao. Instead of weakening, they became stronger and stronger. The infinite vitality, the endless laws of Tao, and the magnificent and horrifying murderous will were all rapidly strengthening. Today, I will offer an endless sacrifice to your undead souls with endless blood. I will rebuild your bodies with endless blood. At this moment, the Golden Dragon, the 7 commanders, and the countless cultivators who were relatively strong and hadn't been scared out of their wits watched the endless lives around them disappear, and the mountains of blood and bones that had belonged to more than 100,000 people being devoured by the green tentacles crazily. In their minds, they recalled the voice that god of slaughter Chun Hao murmured with tears of blood before the battle. Fear. Boundless fear. Under this boundless fear, the Golden Dragon knew that Chun Hao was no longer an existence that could be defeated by the combined forces of all the cultivators in the 9 galaxies. His title as the #1 Grand Luo in ancient chaos was simply a joke in front of him. Was he any different from those cannon fodders from before? No. No matter how powerful his divine ability was, it could only delay the time it took for him to be devoured. Let alone attacking Chun Hao, who seemed to have transformed into a tree that connected the 9 heavens and 10 earth. Without a doubt, judging from the dense tentacles that covered the sky and earth around him and the 7 commanders, what they were facing was much stronger than the other cultivators. Even if they destroyed their physical bodies, Their primordial spirits would not be able to escape. Roar! The golden dragon didn't dare to hesitate any longer, and it suddenly let out a thunderous roar. Although he was fuming with anger, and although he knew that doing so would directly affect the peak power of the fusion in the future, he had no choice but to do so. He couldn't hesitate any longer, or else it wouldn't be as simple as being devoured in the 10th anima, boundless and terrifying essence, which contained the mysteries of Hongming Qi, soared into the sky with the golden dragon's roar. At the same time, an incomparably resplendent light bloomed from between his brows, triggering divine punishment. Before the prototype of the great cosmos had been tempered into a perfect framework, or more accurately, before the basic framework had truly taken shape, the golden dragon had triggered divine punishment. By doing so, his strength would be greatly affected after he stepped into the Hongming realm. The most direct effect would be that the increase in strength after his original body fused with the 10th anima would be greatly reduced. But there was no other way. It was better than being devoured. Once he was devoured, all the secrets of his original body would be exposed. Moreover, his original body didn't have much time to sacrifice the 10th anima to form a new one. Only by triggering divine punishment could he escape with his life. Brother Jean, save me. Save me. Brother Jean, save me. I will submit to you and follow you forever. Brother Jean, save me. At this moment, the other 7 great commanders hadn't fused with the great cosmos brand. To be precise, they hadn't comprehended the Hongming Qi in order to hunt down the proud heavens members and human cultivators. Now they were madly rushing toward the golden dragon. Divine punishment. They knew very well that once the golden dragon triggered divine punishment, it didn't matter if the prototype of the great cosmos was perfect or not. It would still take shape and have a great cosmos in its mind. Then, they could enter the great cosmos in its mind and escape from the hands of the god of slaughter Chen Hao, the devil. Stop him with all your might. When divine punishment descends, hold on until it's over. I'll take you with me and escape. The golden dragon roared. Even if he triggered divine punishment, the Milky Way tunnel connecting the 9 heavens and 10 earths would only open after the divine punishment was over. Only then could he leave the 10 corners domain. Therefore, before that, they had to stop the terrifying Chen Hao. Alright, let's join forces and stop him. If we can hold on, we'll live. If we can't, we'll die. Let's fight. Fight. Protect Brother Jean. The 7 great commanders were not idiots. They immediately understood the key point, so at this moment no one hesitated. As for ordering others, there were not many cultivators within a radius of tens of millions of kilometers who were still persevering. Those who were quick on the uptake wished that they had more legs when their parents gave birth to them, so that they could run as fast as they could. How could they still obey orders? They could only rely on themselves. Boom. Boom. They all released berserk power as they desperately tried to block and move to the golden dragon's side. Terrifying tribulation clouds quickly condensed as the golden dragon's aura madly gathered. The golden dragon knew that he had to give up the tempering of divine punishment. The moment the first divine punishment appeared, he had to destroy it and give up the tempering of resisting it head-on. Only in this way could he open the Milky Way tunnel as soon as possible. It's useless. A voice that seemed to come from the 9 serenities hell suddenly rang in their ears. Big brother, it's me, Linger. Big brother, it's us. When the tentacles spread tens of millions of miles, hundreds of millions of miles, and hundreds of millions of miles, chasing after the cultivators who were fleeing in all directions, Chen Ling and Li Yang, who were also in a daze and extremely terrified, suddenly unleashed the last bit of aura left in their souls and shouted frantically. They had no idea if Chen Hao could recognize them. After all, Chen Hao's original body was more than 100 million miles away from here. It was most likely that he would devour and destroy everything. The two of them looked at the tentacles that were getting closer and closer to them, and they were extremely terrified. They could naturally escape if they wanted to, but they shouted desperately and released their auras, hoping to hold on until the last moment. If their big brother's consciousness was not in the tentacles, then they could only run. 5th update, begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1067. Hiss. Hiss. When the tentacles were only about 100 kilometers away from the two of them, and were about to reach them in the blink of an eye, the endless and dense tentacles suddenly separated to the two sides as if a watershed had appeared. With a swish, after bypassing the two of them, the tentacles interweaved again and quickly extended into the distance. Phew! Chunling and Li Yang, who had been holding their breath, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Ah, they're making way? At this moment, what surprised Chunling and Li Yang even more was that in the direction of Chunhao, the endless tentacles quickly separated, forming a cave-like passage. Needless to say, this passage had been specially opened for the two of them. Big brother, swish. The two of them burst into tears of joy as they turned into streaks of light and charged toward Chunhao. Senior brother. Ha 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 ha. In another direction, Curly Dragon's soul, which could be considered tough, was laughing in excitement. But his eyes, which looked like a shadow, were red. Just like Chunling and Li Yang, he rushed into a channel that was cleared for him. A while later, Chunling, Li Yang, and Panlong's souls were only barely able to control their dispersing souls after their souls had intertwined. They directly entered Chunhao's mental world through the tunnel created by the tentacles. There was no time gap at all. The moment the three of them entered, boundless and pure vitality and endless spiritual chi of the world poured over them. Big brother. Big brother. Sob sob sob. Chunling sensed the endless life force and energy of the world surrounding her, which was filled with care and fear that she would not be able to withstand it all of a sudden. It seemed to have turned into streams that fused into her heavily injured soul. She immediately cried out loud. Don't cry. No matter how serious your wounds are, Big Brother will heal them. When Chunhao sensed that Chunling and Li Yang's souls were damaged and could only be maintained by fusing their souls together, he consoled them with heartache. Big brother, don't worry about us for now. Kill. We can't let that golden dragon escape. Li Yang sternly said. That's right, senior brother. Kill them all. Kill them all. Let's avenge little Nan, Du Jing, and all of our brothers and sisters in proud heaven. Elder brother. When it came to little Nan and Du Jing, Coiling Dragon, who looked like a ferocious beast, began to choke with sobs. Rest assured. None of them will escape. They will all die. Swish. Swish. In the outside world, the 7 commanders had arrived around the golden dragon to protect it. When Chunhao suddenly spoke, the tentacles suddenly tightened, as if they had turned into long spears. Suddenly, the murderous will and the laws of the mystical powers were released. It was unknown how many times stronger they had become, but they covered the sky and covered the earth as they blasted out in an extremely violent manner. Ah! Boom 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 boom. The 7 commanders and the golden dragon, who was in the center, roared in horror at this moment. They were like ferocious beasts that had been trapped in a cage and had gone completely mad. Puff. Ah! However, this was only the first round of attacks. They didn't sense anything unusual among the tentacles. Suddenly, a dazzling spear light flashed with a mysterious aura that was completely beyond the knowledge of the 7 great commanders. Even the golden dragon's pupils constricted. Without any suspense, the spear pierced through the forehead of the winged clan commander. Swish. Swish. However, this time, the body of the winged clan commander didn't explode. Instead, it was pierced like a hedgehog by the countless tentacles that seemed to have turned into spears. In an instant, its flesh and blood disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even its bones were entangled and devoured by the tentacles. No, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. This horrifying scene frightened the other 6 great commanders. The elf clan commander gave up resisting and knelt down with a plop. Killing God Chunhao, please let me go. I don't want to die. I'm willing to be your slave. Please let me go. Facing this power that was on a completely different level, he was in complete despair. This was only the first round of powerful attacks, and the winged clan commander who was no weaker than him had his soul destroyed with a single spear strike. Then his soul was devoured until nothing was left. How long could they last? It was impossible for them to survive the 9 levels of heavenly punishment. Trash, you're courting death. The golden dragon was furious. Without any hesitation, he slapped at the elf clan commander. It's not your turn to attack. Swish. 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 Chunhao's cold voice sounded again, and the endless tentacles blocked the golden dragon's horrifying attack. Then, with a series of puff, 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 the desperate elf clan commander was pierced like a hedgehog and devoured completely. Slaves? How dare you? I'll kill you one by one. I'll use your blood as a sacrifice to my brothers and sisters. Don't worry, your soul consciousness won't disappear so quickly. What awaits you is an endless purgatory and endless pain. What? Chen Hao's cold voice sent chills down the spines of the golden dragon, Lu Qianri, and the others. Could it be that the devouring earlier didn't destroy their souls? Death wasn't the most horrifying thing. What was horrifying was being unable to live or die. Devil, devil, devil? What was it when the 9 galaxies joined hands to fight against the human clan and killed the human clan's cultivators? I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine. It's your turn now. Puff. The Overlord spear suddenly shot out from one of the tentacles at lightning speed. Boundless profoundness, terrifying pressure, and majestic and violent power. Without any suspense, the Overlord spear pierced through the Spirit Clan commander's forehead. Boom. Crack. The first heavenly punishment finally descended under the golden dragon's frenzied urging and triggering. At this moment, the golden dragon was terrified, but he didn't give up hope. Suddenly, he punched the heavenly punishment descending from the sky toward the tribulation cloud. Hold on, all of you. There's still hope. There's still hope. The golden dragon roared. Chi. At this moment, to the golden dragon's horror, a stream of light that was faster than his attack suddenly appeared above him. At the same time, a huge handprint came crashing down. Boom. Boom. The golden dragon's attack, which had gathered all of his strength, was annihilated by the handprint. How can such a powerful heavenly punishment be wasted? Chen Hao, who had countless tentacles extending from his forehead, stood proudly in the void at this moment. He looked up at the terrifying heavenly punishment descending from the sky and separated all of his tentacles, so that his physical body could be directly exposed to the heavenly punishment. How is this possible? How can you be so strong? How is this possible? The golden dragon looked up at the figure standing proudly and roared in horror. God of slaughter Chen Hao, if you dare to kill me, the God clan won't let you go. I'm the last disciple of the controller. Lu Qianri's face was pale and his body was trembling, but he still shouted at Chen Hao frantically. The last disciple of the controller? I didn't say that I'm going to kill you. How can I kill you? At the very least, I should leave behind your soul origin brand. As someone from the ancient chaos universe, I haven't been to any of your major galaxies. No matter what, I have to go and have some fun. Crack. Boom. Boom. Chen Hao endured the endless bombardment of lightning, but his voice didn't fluctuate at all. Such terrifying strength made Lu Qianri and the others completely despair. First update. Begging for monthly votes. Thank you. Chapter 1068. Roar. The golden dragon suddenly let out a terrifying roar. You forced me to do this. Oh, are you going to use your true Abijna law? Why? Don't you want to hide anymore? Chen Hao interrupted the golden dragon before he could finish his sentence. He looked down at the mad golden dragon with disdain, his eyes shining brightly. What? What do you know? Naive. Don't worry, you can't do anything. I'll kill you with my own hands and wash the tyrant clan's gene family with blood. You. How do you know? You want to know? Then I might as well tell you that the 10th anima you've comprehended is too weak. Although you've broken through a level compared to Xiaoyan, compared to me, it's not enough. Your essence is still connected, so how can it be considered a true 10th anima? How do you know? Then I'll have to thank Xiaoyan. I'm only SOSO in other aspects, but when it comes to comprehending ultimate laws, I'm pretty good. I accidentally comprehended the true 9 lives profundities, and broke through to the 10th life. I guess that counts as having comprehended it. It's a pity that my 9 lives haven't been fully condensed, so I can't try it out. What problem? The golden dragon seemed to have completely accepted his fate. He looked up at Chen Hao, who was standing in the void and resisting his heavenly punishment. To be able to derive the 10th life, even if it was Xiaoyan back then, you should have recovered to your peak strength, right? But your strength back then. Oh, I'm talking about your original body. You couldn't dominate the vast universe galaxy. Your 9 lives must have entered other galaxies and obtained a very high status, right? Hearing Chun Hao's words, the golden dragon looked terrified, but there was still a trace of pride in his eyes. You're very smart. At the same time, I also have a problem. If you fused your 9 lives, I believe that Senior Yi, who hasn't succeeded in Nirvana, wouldn't be your opponent, right? Even if you joined forces with my father, it wouldn't be enough, right? Why didn't you unify the vast universe galaxy first? Why did you split up? Old man wants to. Elon. If it was as simple as you think, the old man would have controlled the ancient chaos-boundless world long ago. Oh, so it turns out that I underestimated Senior Yi. You don't have to waste your energy. Don't even think about sending out any information. What? At this moment, the golden dragon was truly shocked. The 10-direction territory shielded all the mysteries of heaven, but he had the ability to penetrate the 10-direction territory. The great deduction skill that he told the 8 commanders was just an excuse. He knew nothing about the legendary great deduction skill. Among the countless worlds in the endless star river, only a few super powerful figures who had the cultivation method of the great deduction skill could break through it. At most, they could understand a little bit of it. It was impossible for them to penetrate the 10-direction territory that shielded the mysteries of heaven. However, he was in the 10th life. Once the major world imprint was refined into a basic prototype, he could rely on the link between the origin and the original body. The embryonic form of the major world of the 10th life, and the original body's major world, could link up with the aura of the outside world, and obtain a certain amount of deduction ability. At this moment, he had triggered the divine punishment. Although the embryonic form of the major world had not been refined into a basic framework, once the divine punishment moved, it meant that it had taken shape. Through this subtle link, he could confidently transmit information to the original body. This was his biggest plan in talking to Chun Hao and stalling for time. He was certain that he could not keep the 10th life. If he could send the information back, at least the original body would be prepared. Chun Hao's heaven-defying ability was a huge threat to the original body, let alone the golden dragon. In the 10-direction territory, once he ascended to the Grand Mist Supremacy realm and stepped out of the 10-direction territory, he would be no less an obstacle than Chun Hao. However, he did not expect that everything he did seemed to be under the control of Chun Hao. Buzz. Endless mysterious runes suddenly appeared out of nowhere in the void. Every rune released an extremely terrifying pressure, as if they were shielding the heavens and the earth. How is it? Not bad, right? Chun Hao said with a slight smile, the corners of his mouth curling up slightly. However, the cold light in his eyes and the blood-red killing intent did not diminish in the slightest. How is this possible? Who the hell are you? Chun Hao nicknamed the killing god. Who else could he be? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Even a true immortal severing Tao, even if the old man was in his peak state, could not comprehend such a terrifying divine ability. Your runes, this aura. Although it's still very weak, its mystery is definitely a divine ability above the true immortal king realm. You're indeed an old fart. You're quite knowledgeable. This is merely an immortal sutra that I comprehended in another greater thousand world. It's just As he spoke, Lu Qianri and the others, who had already given up resisting, were already entangled by the endless tentacles. Even their souls were imprisoned. However, Chun Hao did not immediately make a move. He did not even look at them. Only the golden dragon was free at this moment. However, the golden dragon, or rather the Shao clan patriarch's 10th life, knew very well that the other party only wanted to use his heavenly punishment to temper himself. Once the 9th heavenly punishment descended, he would be at the mercy of the other party. I can't let him off so easily. The golden dragon, who was in complete despair, had 2 rays of resolute light in his eyes. Suddenly he shook with a buzz, and wanted to explode and die. This was the best outcome. It was much better than being completely controlled by the other party, and unable to live or die. However, just as his body shook, Chun Hao, who was staring at him, had a trace of disdain in his eyes. As for the golden dragon, his face was ghastly pale. Unknowingly, The mysterious runes had already invaded his soul and body. Just as his soul power and true yuan moved, they were imprisoned. Crack. Rumble. The golden dragon's essence, energy, and spirit were all under Chun Hao's control, causing the terrifying heavenly punishment to descend continuously. Chun Hao was strong, not because of his absolute strength, but because of his divine power laws that completely surpassed his realm. At the same time, Chun Hao had also used a power that belonged to him, but was not his true strength. The Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree. This was something that Chun Hao had never been willing to use or rely on. However, this time, the boundless killing intent and hatred made Chun Hao cast aside all his scruples. He used the cruel and inhumane methods that the other party had used on the human race. Devour. Devour everything. Any cultivator who could not surpass Chun Hao in terms of absolute strength would not be able to stop this devouring. After chasing for a full 1 billion miles, Chun Hao's powerful soul power finally reached its limit. He could no longer control the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree to continue forward. However, Chun Hao was already very satisfied. Even before the battle, he had not expected to achieve such an effect. Second update. Seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1069. How many alien races had he killed and devoured? At least 1 million. Those who managed to escape were the alien race cultivators who were originally in the periphery and far away. Moreover, at least 1/3 of them had escaped by relying on their primordial spirits. When the Golden Dragon's heavenly punishment reached the 9th level, Chun Hao, who was equipped with a divine weapon, directly smashed the Golden Dragon's body and soul into a state of collapse before the Milky Way tunnel appeared. This was the only way to stop the heavenly punishment from continuing. Otherwise, even if the Golden Dragon was sucked into the spiritual world, the mysterious heavenly punishment would not end as long as he did not die. The Milky Way tunnel would appear even in Chun Hao's spiritual world. After that, Chun Hao completely bound the Golden Dragon's soul fragments and sucked them into the spiritual world along with the other 5 commanders. The moment they entered, Lu Qianri and the other 4 were dumbfounded. Their hearts were filled with confusion and boundless fear. The spiritual world. This was the symbol of the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, and no one was an exception. What did that mean? It meant that killing God Chun Hao was the supreme of Hongmeng. They finally understood why they had lost so miserably, and why they had no power to fight back. However, how could the supreme of Hongmeng enter the 10 Directions territory? Unfortunately, other than being conscious, they could not even move. Chun Hao naturally would not answer their doubts. Fear. This was because the place they'd appeared in was a sea of blood and a mountain of corpses that was formed from endless blood and severed limbs. Countless collapsed soul energies and incomplete souls filled this place, and they were wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. It was like purgatory on earth, and it was filled with the emotions left behind by the dead at the instant of their deaths. Terror. The evil aura and the souls that pounced on them madly and attacked their soul residences and minds were like malicious ghosts. They were imprisoned and could not resist at all. In just a moment, their minds had completely collapsed and they fell into boundless fear. However, they were protected by a mysterious force that kept their consciousness on the verge of collapse, but it did not collapse. At the same time, the soul fragments of the 3 commanders of the Succubus tribe, the Winged tribe, and the Elf tribe, as well as the Golden Dragon, were quickly fusing and reforming under Chun Hao's mysterious power. Of course, Chun Hao could not help them fully recover, nor did he have the ability to do so. He could only help them regain their consciousness. Do you want to die? It was too difficult. If it weren't for the heavenly punishment, Chun Hao wouldn't have destroyed it and spent so much effort to repair its soul fragments. The others could be killed, but Jin Long and the other 8 had to be left for Coiling Dragon and the others. In the past, even if Chun Hao went on a killing spree, he would always abide by the principle of not going too far when killing people. He disdained to trample on his enemies. But this time, let alone his brothers and sisters, even he didn't want to let them die so easily. Hiss hiss hiss. When Chun Hao sat down cross-legged, the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree's extended tentacles began to retract. What a terrifying growth rate. A moment later, Chun Hao was shocked. The great world in his mind seemed to be restricting the growth of the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree. This time, he had combined his divine power and nomological laws to madly hunt and devour foreign race cultivators, allowing the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree to grow at an astonishing rate in a short period of time. The retracted tentacles turned into branches and leaves that blotted out the sky. Boundless vitality was extremely dense and rooted in the spirit spring sea. The main trunk seemed to be connected to Chen Hao's great world in his mind. The dense branches and leaves almost covered the entire spirit spring sea. Invincible among those of the same level. As long as the heavenly Tao nomological laws and absolute power don't surpass me, I only need to use the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree to be invincible. There's nothing I can't devour. What a monster. I should use it less in the future. Chen Hao thought to himself. He had no choice this time, but Chen Hao knew that if he really used the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree as his greatest reliance and used it frequently, it would not be a good thing. It was a power that belonged to him and was closely related to his cultivation, but it did not belong to him. It was fine to use it occasionally, but if he really relied on it, it would be a huge problem for his future growth. It was like a Dharma treasure. He could not rely on it too much, or it would limit his growth. Moreover, if his absolute power and comprehension of the heavenly Tao nomological laws surpassed Chen Hao's, the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree would not be able to unleash its full power. After completely retracting the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree into the great world in his mind, Chen Hao's divine thought materialized and appeared in front of Chun Ling and Li Yang. Big brother. Big brother. Chun Ling and Li Yang's souls were still entangled. Although their auras were much stronger now, the damage to their souls was not something that could be healed in a short period of time. Even now, Chen Hao had no way to heal them. Soul injuries were the most difficult to heal in the world, just like the destruction of the physical body. If the physical body was destroyed, the only way was to rebuild the golden body. However, even if the cultivator used blood essence to rebuild the golden body, only a very small portion could be obtained and awakened. Moreover, it involved the problem of compatibility. Of course, as time passed, the effects of rebuilding the golden body would not be too serious. As long as the blood essence used was strong enough, it was possible to surpass the original physical body. However, it was almost impossible to heal a soul injury. Even if it was an extreme Tao spirit cultivator, it could only be completely restored in theory. But that was under the condition that the 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls were complete. Chun Ling and Li Yang had lost half of their 3 spiritual souls and spirits. When the 2 of them fused together, it was just enough to form the 3 spiritual souls and spirits that could not dissipate. Recover your soul strength first. I'll think of a way. I can't do it now. Wait until I reach the Hongmeng realm. I can't do it in the Hongmeng realm. Wait until I become a true immortal. One day, I'll be able to heal your souls completely. Big brother, it's okay. We're already very satisfied to be alive and see you kill all our enemies. Big brother, senior brother and I have discussed it. Discussed it? About what? We want to reincarnate and become human again. We want to be real people and not immortal spiritual bodies. Ah, how can that be? In your current state, you won't be able to inherit your memories if you reincarnate. Once you reincarnate, you won't be you anymore. Even if you have the same soul origin, you'll have an end to this life. Absolutely not. Big brother, we know that you have many divine abilities, but our souls are already incomplete. There's no way to heal them. Moreover, before we reincarnate, you just need to leave a mark on our soul origin. One day, we'll be together again. Don't even think about it. Don't say such things in the future, unless I really have no other way. The extreme Tao spirit cultivator that your master left behind is not at the peak of the great Tao. Even if he can't do it, it doesn't mean that I can't do it. Third update, I beg for monthly votes. Chapter 1070. Brother, don't give up. Recover your soul power first. I will think of a way. Wait until I become the supreme of Hongmeng. Then I will help you reconstruct your golden bodies. After saying that, Chen Hao left and went in front of Pan Long, senior brother. Pan Long shouted excitedly. His primordial spirit, which hadn't suffered much damage, had already recovered to its peak condition under the energy Chen Hao had created. Help me reconstruct my golden body. I'm going to kill them with my own hands. I want to kill every single one of them who escaped. Wait until I become the Supreme of Hongmeng. Then I will help you reconstruct your golden body. It will be stronger that way. Ah, how can that be? Senior brother, when you become the Supreme of Hongmeng, you will leave the 10 Directions territory, Coiling Dragon said. Let's just make one for now, Chen Hao said. All right. But, senior brother, it can't be too weak. Otherwise, I won't be able to use my full strength. Lu Qianri of the celestial race has a very strong physical body. Try it first. Maybe it will suit you. Qi. With a thought, Chen Hao pulled Lu Qianri out of the sea of corpses and appeared in front of Chen Hao. No. Don't. Lu Qianri waved his arms wildly. He was still immersed in the fear left behind by the deaths of millions of cultivators. Although the millions of cultivators could not be compared to Chen Hao, they were still the masters of the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Although the emotions left behind by these people could not be formed into divine consciousness, they were still extremely powerful. Moreover, there were millions of cultivators mixed together. Even Chen Hao might not be able to withstand the fear left behind by the sea of corpses, let alone Lu Qianri. Motherfucker, weren't you arrogant before? Now you are like an idiot who has lost his mind, Coiling Dragon said disdainfully. Wait a minute, I will let you try it. Chen Hao looked at Coiling Dragon and suddenly thought of a good way to train him. Try what? Buzz. Chen Hao tapped lightly, and the space around him shook. Ah! Pan Long suddenly screamed in fear. His eyes popped out, and his primordial spirit trembled. Senior brother. What is that? All the cultivators of the foreign races that were killed, mountains of corpses, seas of blood, and the lingering wills they left behind when they died. In other words, emotions. If you can withstand it, your will and state of mind will improve tremendously. Qi. As Chen Hao spoke, he reached out and grabbed at Lu Qianri's forehead. Lu Qianri's soul was extracted and thrown into the sea of corpses by Chen Hao. Since you've taken over this body, I'll send you in to temper yourself. Senior brother. I think it's better if you don't. Coiling Dragon's soul immediately began to tremble. He had only glanced at it earlier, but the hellish scene made his scalp tingle. In particular, the presence of fear within it had directly shaken his soul. There's no room for discussion. It was pure luck that your primordial spirit managed to survive this time. What about next time? Could it be that you expect your senior brother to always be by your side? Could it be? Senior brother, don't say any more. I'll go. Buzz. Coiling Dragon's primordial spirit trembled and directly entered Lu Qianri's forehead. Immediately, he easily took control of this soulless body. Of course, if he wanted to unleash its power, he would have to work hard to temper himself. Entering the terrifying emotional pressure of the mountains of corpses and seas of blood was undoubtedly the best place to temper himself. Senior brother, send me in. Unless I'm about to die, don't worry about me. Good. That's right. Only when one is ruthless to oneself will one not give others the chance to be ruthless to themselves. I'll send you in. Not only will you have to endure the boundless emotional pressure, but I'll also exert the pressure of the great Tao on you. If you can adapt well to this body, when I become the Supreme of Hongmeng, I'll reconstruct a golden body for you on the basis of this body. Go. Qi. With a flash of crystal light, Coiling Dragon disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared, he was in the sea of corpses and seas of blood. The boundless emotions of fear made Coiling Dragon tremble and break out in cold sweat. In an instant, it was as if countless terrifying ghosts were attacking his mind. All kinds of feelings of fear began to spread in Coiling Dragon's mind. Crash. At the same time, the boundless Tao law pressure poured down from the sky and enveloped Coiling Dragon. If Zhou Qinglong and the other evildoers in the chaotic universe were here, they would find that the Tao law pressure came from the 3 great immortal scriptures. Roar. Coiling Dragon roared and immediately began to resist desperately. The expression of the body he had just occupied was distorted beyond recognition. Become stronger, I want to become stronger. Nothing can frighten me, nothing can overwhelm me. Ah, chi, 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 chi. While Chunling and Liang were recovering their soul strength, Coiling Dragon entered the sea of corpses and seas of blood to refine himself and his new body. Chen Shui was still in a deep sleep as Chen Hao refined her reborn body. Chen Hao began to merge with the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree and condensed the majestic vitality he had devoured this time with the things Zhou Qinglong had given him. At the same time, Hu Meinyang, Helian Wuxi, Long Ting, and the other members of the Proud Heavens took turns to cast spells and approach the core area day and night. The boundless 10-direction territory was too large. In addition, the members of the Proud Heavens and the cultivators of the human tribe had fled to the periphery. It was impossible for them to reach the core area in time. After all, they were already half a year later than Chen Hao when they received the news. You must wait for us to arrive. Even if it's the last time we see each other. Helian Wuxi was shrouded in chaotic divine light. She shuttled quickly with several members of the Proud Heavens. Her cold face was full of anxiety. He left for more than 10,000 years and came back to the 10-direction territory. Why can't he come to us first? If I don't tell him, what about them? Even if we have to risk our lives, can't we go together? Hu Meinyang also brought several people and sped up to the limit. However, she had a different idea from Helian Wuxi. She was different from the other girls. From the beginning to the end, she had never promised anything to Chen Hao. As the saintess of the Misty Rain House, she could not promise anything. Although Chen Hao had long been imprinted in her heart, just like the members of the Proud Heavens, she had never treated her as an equal to Chen Shui and the others. Of course, she had such thoughts at the moment because she had concluded in the depths of her heart that no matter how strong Chen Hao was, he could not fight against the alliance of the 9 galaxies alone. The powerful Golden Dragon and the 8 commanders were not weak. Moreover, even if Chen Hao was stronger than the Golden Dragon and the others, who would want to fight him one-on-one? This was the last light, but it was more likely to be the last battle. Unfortunately, they had received too little information. It seemed to be an extravagant hope to fight to the death together. Quick! Quick! Huan Lele, let me do it! Long Ting, who had always been lazy and would never stand if she could lie down, seemed to be a completely different person now. Even when she was resting, she could not calm down. Even Huan and Lele's teleportation skill was too slow. 4th update, seeking monthly votes. Wuxian continues. Chapter 1071. As time passed, Tantai Lian, Xia Yuyu, Chen Yan, and the others also became more and more anxious, especially after they could no longer see any cultivators, especially the foreign race cultivators. They became even more impatient. They couldn't imagine how Chen Hao could face the alliance of the 9 galaxies alone. Their only hope was that Chen Hao would slow down a bit, start the battle a bit later, risk his life a bit later, and wait for their arrival. Chen Hao had been away for more than 10,000 years. Before he stepped into the 10-direction territory, they were hunted down endlessly and died one after another. They basically didn't have any hope of seeing Chen Hao again in this life. They missed him day and night and prayed to him in a special way day and night. Now Chen Hao had returned and entered the 10-direction territory. If they missed the time and couldn't see him for the last time, how regretful would that be? After more than 10,000 years of waiting and praying, they stepped into the same space but were so close yet so far away. They couldn't even explain their deaths. Whether they died in battle or were on the run again. As long as they could see each other again, everything else was not important. Forward. Full speed ahead. In the blink of an eye, they had been flying for a full year. They were getting closer and closer to the core area of the 10-direction territory. They would definitely arrive in 20 days. What they didn't know was that the battle in the depths of the 10-direction territory had ended today. Chi. When they advanced for another 10 days, Hu Meinyang and Helian Wuxi, who were in the lead, suddenly froze and stopped. The foreign tribe cultivators are approaching quickly. Primordial spirit? We may be too late. Let's go in. Helian Wuxi only hesitated for a moment before saying coldly. After that, she suddenly sped up and went into the depths again. Then let's go. Hu Mainyang and the others didn't hesitate. They directly took out their magic weapons and prepared for the upcoming battle. After more than 1,000 years, they had long been used to the scene of a great battle after encountering the aura of foreign tribes. Human tribe. What Helian Wuxi and the others didn't expect was that when the countless foreign race cultivators, who had obviously raised their speed to the limit, were about to meet them, after sensing their existence, they suddenly let out a cry of surprise. One after another, they turned around and quickly fled to the side. What was going on? Everyone was puzzled. For over 1,000 years, when did non-human cultivators ever run away when they saw human cultivators? It would be fine if the other party's aura was too weak, but there were so many of them, and none of them had weak auras. Why would they avoid such a small number of people? More importantly, these people were rushing over quickly. Wasn't it because they had discovered their existence? Something's wrong. Well, Hu Mainyang suddenly said. Endless precepts bloomed around her. Surrounded by celestial light, she suddenly shot out and chased after the foreign cultivator. At the same time, the space between Helian Wuxi's eyebrows suddenly bloomed. Endless chaotic immortal light cut through the void, like a long bridge connecting heaven and earth, and shot towards the foreign race cultivators at a terrifying speed. Amidst the mournful and terrified screams, the two primordial spirits were respectively captured by Hu Mainyang and Helian Wuxi. Don't kill me, I'm just a small fry. In the end, I still have to die. Ditha. Fine. Dying in your hands is better than dying like that. Kill me. One of the two primordial spirits begged for mercy, while the other seemed like it was about to be freed. Tell me, why are you running away? Hu Mainyang's eyes suddenly bloomed with dazzling seven-colored light. She stared straight at one of the primordial spirits that she had captured and shouted. Dead, all dead. Countless people have died. God of killing Chunhao. Devil-y. Beep. When the crowd heard the words of the foreign race cultivator's primordial spirit, they were shocked. Then their eyes shone with excitement. Just as they were about to interrogate the foreign race cultivator about Chunhao, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from the void. A crisp beep sound was transmitted into the crowd's ears. At that moment, all of them jerked their heads up and looked at the sky. They were very familiar with that crisp beep sound. Unfortunately, they had not heard it since hundreds of years ago. This was because their miniature aircraft had been destroyed by the terrifying Golden Dragon and the 8 great commanders time and time again during their escape. Otherwise, they would not have had such a hard time escaping. But at this moment, they heard the crisp beep that only Chunhao's aircraft could make. It was as pleasant as heavenly music. Xiaoji pays his respects to the mistresses and brothers and sisters. Swish. The moment the cabin door opened, a shadow condensed into Tiny Tot. He stood in the void and said to the crowd with clasped fists. Everyone stared blankly at Tiny Tot. Their faces were filled with endless shock and joy. They were so excited that they could not speak, as if they could not believe that this was real. Xiaoji was the first miniature aircraft condensed by Chunhao, the Wuxia No. 1 intelligent brain. More than 10,000 years ago, he Itota and the 5 divine beasts resolutely stepped into the depths of the chaotic space to find their master. Now he had appeared in front of them. They only knew that Chunhao had stepped into the Shifeng territory. But now, what did Xiaoji's appearance mean? It must be that Itota and the others had found Chunhao. If Xiaoji was here, then Chunhao must be here too, right? Everyone looked at Xiaoji excitedly. Looking at the open cabin door, they could not help but tear up. Are you still going to hide? Helian Wuxi said to the cabin door, the corner of her mouth twitching. Brother. Chunyan directly jumped up and rushed to the cabin door. Oh, mistresses, don't be so excited. Master has just finished a great battle, and is refining and devouring the million scum. Master doesn't know where you are, so he is waiting for you. He sent Xiaoji out to find you. I didn't expect him to find you so quickly. What? Long Ting suddenly jumped up. She felt that it was a complete waste of her feelings. She was crying, but he did not come. Ahem. Mistresses, brothers and sisters, come up quickly. I will take you to meet Master, Xiaoji said in a very human voice. It was impossible to tell that it was an intelligent life with a childish voice. Million scum. Xiaoji. What do you mean? Hu Meinyang asked with her eyes wide open. Master has returned from the life and death tribulation after more than 10,000 years. His supernatural powers are unparalleled, and he is invincible. He challenged the alliance of the 9 galaxies alone, captured the 9 great commanders alive, and killed millions of scum. If it were not for the fact that the outer scum were too far away, and some of them escaped by exploding their bodies and vital spirits, Master would have annihilated them all. In addition, Mistress Xiaoxue is safe and sound. Brother Pan, Sister Ling, and Brother Li are all being treated by Master, Xiaoji said in his childish voice with lofty sentiments and passion. He looked up at the endless void, full of endless worship and reverence. 5th update. Seeking monthly votes. Seeking subscriptions. Seeking support. Please everyone. Chapter 1072. Xiaoji's every sentence and every word shocked everyone. It was as if they were struck by lightning or heavenly music. They were shocked, stunned, and dumbfounded. Capturing the 9 great commanders alive? Killing millions of scum? If they hadn't run fast enough, they would have been wiped out? Was that even possible? Any one of these was like a fantasy story to them. They were all things that they had never even thought about before. No one knew the strength of the 9 great commanders better than them, especially the powerful Golden Dragon. His divine ability was many times stronger than a Grand Luo. None of the other 8 great commanders were weak, especially Lu Qianri with the godly king body. He was no weaker than Hu Meinyang, Helian Wuzi, and Chen Shui. However, Xiaoji said that Chen Hao had captured the 9 great commanders alive. What did that mean? That was already exaggerated enough. How could he have killed millions of cultivators? What did it mean to kill millions of cultivators? After all, those who could stay in the 10-direction territory were at least perfected golden immortals. Even if 1,000,000 perfected golden immortals stood there for you to kill, you would still have to kill them until your hands went numb and your energy ran out. Mistresses, brothers and sisters, you don't have to look at Xiaoji like that. Every word he said is true and true. He is conservative and not exaggerating. Look, do you see these 2 fellows? Do you see the foreign scum who pissed their pants when they saw you? This is the proof. What you see is only in this direction. All around you are scum who pissed their pants and wish their parents had given birth to them with more legs. Not to mention you. Even the other small human legions rushing to the core area can scare them away. When Xiaoji saw that everyone was staring at him in disbelief and shock, his expression quickly turned to one of doubt. He immediately continued. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha. Lan Feng was the first to recover from his stupor and laughed wildly. He laughed so hard that tears streamed down his face, but he still laughed. For more than 1,000 years, he had been on the brink of death. His best brothers and sisters, the main force who had accompanied him through life and death, had fallen one after another. What kind of sorrow was that? What kind of heartache was that? Now he, who was ready to risk his life and follow his brothers and sisters, received such news. He laughed, cried, and laughed. Men did not easily shed tears, but at this moment, he forgot everything. In his teary eyes, he seemed to see the scene in the primordial mystic realm, where Big Brother wielded his spear and killed all gods and devils who stood in his way. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. Master said that he will use the blood of the foreign races to pay tribute to Xiao Nan, Du Jing, and proud Tian's brothers and sisters in heaven. Come in. Little Ji will bring you to meet Master. When Xiaoji saw that everyone was crying uncontrollably, he also felt sad. His tender voice sounded like he was about to cry as he spoke. Chi. Soon after, everyone held each other's hands and flew into the aircraft. The cabin door closed, and Xiaoji Wan turned into a streak of light with a swoosh. Xiaoji's how long? After a long while, Lan Feng finally calmed himself down and asked Xiaoji, "What do you think?" Everyone wiped the tears from their faces and looked at Xiaoji. 462 hours, it won't be long. When I came out to find you, I was searching around the core area, so it was a little slow. Half a day more. We'll see Big Brother. Xiaoji, can't you simulate the scene? Let's see Big Brother fight. Everyone was shocked by Xiaoji's words. That's right, Xiaoji. Hurry up and show us. Long Ting appeared in front of Xiaoji in a flash and grabbed the neck of Xiaoji's virtual shadow. Hurry. Xiaoji. Okay. Oi. Xiaoji hurriedly replied and gave the order. Whoosh. The space in the aircraft suddenly changed and Xiaoji's simulation appeared clearly in front of everyone's eyes. They saw the figure they had not seen in over 10,000 years. They saw his terrifyingly calm face. They saw him forcing the golden dragon out. They saw 2 lines of blood and tears, Xiao Nan, Du Jing Lin Xia. Aotion's brothers and sisters, my fellow humans. Today, I will use an endless amount of blood to pay tribute to your souls. Junior brother Ling, or brother Yang, I hope your primordial spirits are still intact. I will use an endless amount of blood to rebuild your bodies. They heard the voice that shook heaven and earth. It was almost like a prayer. Then they saw the blood-red hair that was driven into a frenzy, endless slaughter, mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Even though this was only a simulation by Xiaoji, and even though the simulated aura was very weak, everyone could imagine what kind of scene it was. His body had expanded 10,000 times, like a demonic god, killing wave after wave of foreign tribesmen. His body was covered in blood and wounds, and he was getting weaker and weaker. At this time, everyone was on tenterhooks and held their breaths. Even though they knew the result, they still could not imagine how Chen Hao had done it. The scene changed. Chen Hao's huge body suddenly shrank. Then, the truly terrifying and unimaginable scene appeared. Shrill and terrifying screams resounded through heaven and earth. Tentacles that could devour heaven and earth spread wildly in the sky. Golden Dragon and the other commanders did not even have the strength to fight back. When the scene ended, everyone's eyes were wide open. They were immersed in extreme shock, and the blood in their bones was boiling and surging. Swoosh! A stream of light streaked across the sky, and the aircraft slowly descended from the void. Swoosh! The hatch opened. Swoosh! 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 The figures who were still immersed in shock suddenly came to their senses. Then they rushed out of the aircraft crazily. One by one, they cried tears of joy in the void, staring at the slender figure with a smile on his face. His eyes were as bright as stars, but they were surging with sparkling light. His slender body was trembling slightly, and he was not as calm as he appeared to be. His gaze stopped on each of them, and he carefully sized them up one by one. The women, Lan Feng, and Aotion's remaining brothers and sisters were all emotional. Their faces were full of tears as they stared blankly at Chen Hao. God of slaughter Chen Hao. No one moved or made a sound. Only strong emotions were spreading among them. More than 10,000 years for them. Seeing him again was like waking up from a nightmare. More than 10,000 years. Chen Hao was unable to calm down as he looked at the familiar group of women, who should have been beautiful and devastatingly beautiful. Yet all of them were haggard and exhausted, and the only remaining brother that Chen Hao was familiar with, Lan Feng. The appearance was born from the heart. With just a glance, he could tell what kind of hardships and dangers his woman and his brothers and sisters had endured until now. Chapter 1073. Brother. Wah. Chen Yan finally couldn't hold it in any longer, and threw herself at Chen Hao. When she dove into Chen Hao's arms like a swallow returning to its nest, she burst into tears. In front of the girls, Chen Yan was the youngest sister. Although everyone knew that she had feelings for Chen Hao, no one rejected her. Although the girls wanted nothing more than to throw themselves into Chen Hao's arms, they maintained their dignity at this time. He didn't belong to any one of them, but to everyone. They couldn't be the first to take advantage of everyone. However, Chen Yan didn't have such scruples, and the girls weren't dissatisfied with her taking the lead. Brother. Xiaonan is dead. She died to save me. Brother. Wah wah wah. Chen Hao allowed his sister to vent, but he couldn't comfort her. How could he? His heart was also in pain because Xiaonan's death had caused him to enter a state of madness that would last for hundreds or even thousands of years. Her body and soul were destroyed. Even Chen Hao, who had 3,000 great Daos, couldn't find any way to save her in his current realm. Chi. Suddenly, Chen Hao pointed a finger between Chen Yan's eyebrows. The emotions that had been suppressed for too long finally exploded at this moment. Chen Yan, who was on the verge of a mental breakdown, disappeared in front of everyone. Boss! When Chen Hao looked at Lan Feng again, Lan Feng suppressed the emotions in his heart and yelled. You don't have to say, I know. I'm sorry I came back late. Chen Hao said. Boss. No, it's not that you came back late. It's us who embarrassed you. Chi. Chen Hao shook his head and waved his finger, causing dazzling beams of light to shoot into the foreheads of Lan Feng and Proud Heaven, and the dozen or so remaining generals. Have a good sleep. Hiss. Following Chen Hao's words, Lan Feng and the others entered the glabella of Chen Hao like Chen Yan. Hu Meinyang's eyes flickered. Meinyang, thank you. Chen Hao looked at Hu Meinyang and said. Thank you? Thank you. Chen Hao's words caused Hu Meinyang, who had just wiped away her tears, to tremble. Was she so unfamiliar to him? She was so unfamiliar with him that she had to thank him as if he was an outsider? Grievance, endless grievance, but she forcibly controlled her emotions. Previously, she could cry, but at this time, with her pride, she definitely could not show any weakness. Thank you. What a harsh word. Back then, when she fought with Xiao Yan, the outcome of the battle was uncertain. Who did she side with immediately? More than 10,000 years of waiting, more than 10,000 years of praying, more than 10,000 years of... Were they all fake? In the 10 Directions domain, he had gone through life and death with the women and the members of the Proud Heaven sect for over 1,000 years. She could accept the fact that Lan Feng and the others didn't put her on the same side as them. After all, there was no agreement between her and Chen Hao, and it was impossible for there to be an agreement. However, Chen Hao's thank you pierced her heart. Hu Meinyang muttered, thank you twice. She tried her best to control her emotions and not show any weakness. However, she could no longer control the pain and grievance in her heart. She didn't want to show any weakness. She didn't want to, really didn't want to, but the tears in her eyes gushed out uncontrollably. She stared blankly at Chen Hao, his figure blurred. She realized that the things she always thought she saw clearly, she didn't expect to see clearly in the end. Chi. At this moment, Chen Hao pointed his finger again. He pointed at Hu Meinyang's forehead. Unlike Chen Yan and Lan Feng, his finger contained a terrifying amount of emotional power. Furthermore, at the same time, he spoke a sentence in her mind. Before she fainted, she had to keep her eyes wide open, but she would still be able to sleep peacefully. Your ability to control your emotions is too strong. If I want to break you down and completely release you, the only way is to provoke you. More than 10,000 years ago, you acknowledged me as your guardian. Although you didn't tell me, did you? Sleep. Have a good sleep. How? You. How can you treat Meinyang like this? Heli and Wuxia couldn't help but say. At this moment, the girls couldn't take it anymore. Of course, this was because they didn't hear Chen Hao's voice transmission. Chi. Chen Hao shook his head and didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the nervous Bailey Ningbing and didn't give her any time to prepare herself. He pointed his finger and immediately absorbed it into his mind. Brother Hao, you shouldn't treat them like this. Long Ting directly grabbed the hand that she hadn't held for more than 10,000 years. She frowned and said, although we don't want you to have more women, but Meinyang and Ningbing have been with us for so long. They've long become good sisters. What you did hurt them too much. I'm sorry. Chen Hao suddenly hugged Long Ting and stretched out his arm like a rubber band. He directly hugged Helian Wuxia, Tantai Lian, Xia Yuyu, Lung Ning Huan and Lung Ning Le. His gaze fell on their faces and he said, I seem to have a few more women. Ah. And what? I have a few children. What? You. All the women widened their eyes and looked at Chen Hao. Their lips trembled and they didn't know what to say. Chi 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 chi. It was also at this moment that Chen Hao suddenly pointed his finger a few more times. A crystal light flashed between his eyebrows and absorbed all the women into the world in his mind. Sleep, sleep. All of you sleep. Have a good sleep. Then, together with me, we'll wash the 10 Corners territory with blood. Phew. Chen Hao let out a long sigh of relief and then shook his head. He was a little troubled. Hu Mainyang, Helian Wuxi, Longting and the others' emotions and willpower were very strong. It was easy to make them break down completely under stimulation. Only by making them break down completely could they better fall into a deep sleep. Then he could do whatever he wanted to refine and transform them. Tension and relaxation were the principles of civil and martial arts. In the past 1,000 years, they had been on the verge of breaking down. If this state continued, even if they could calm down in the future, it would affect their foundation. Therefore, it was necessary to make them fall into a deep sleep. In this aspect, none of them could compare to Coiling Dragon. Especially after seeing Pan Long's performance in the Mountains of Corpses and Seas of Blood, Chen Hao was even more certain that Pan Long's future achievements would be absolutely terrifying. Chen Hao originally thought that Pan Long would need to rest after enduring for half a day in the Mountains of Corpses and Seas of Blood before continuing. But now it had been more than 10 days. Although Pan Long became more and more painful, and seemed to be on the verge of breaking down at any time, he still didn't break down. His willpower and endurance had exceeded Chen Hao's expectations. What was more amazing was that Pan Long and Lu Qianrui's physical bodies had reached perfect compatibility in just a short period of 10 days. This was simply a miracle. Second update. Seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1074. Seizing another's body was much less compatible than reconstructing the golden body. After all, the reconstructed golden body was formed according to the cultivator's own condition. Although it was impossible to completely match, it was still more suitable than directly seizing another's body. However, Coiling Dragon had casually taken over a god's body. Under the dual tempering of the Immortal Sutra and emotional pressure, it had managed to perfectly match his primordial spirit in just over 10 days. Was it a coincidence that Lu Qianrui's God King body was very suitable for Coiling Dragon? Or was Coiling Dragon's appetite so good that nothing was taboo? Chen Hao didn't know. However, this was undoubtedly a situation that Chen Hao was very happy to see. The reaction seems to be very intense. Chen Hao muttered to himself as he thought of the expressions on Helian Wuxi and the others' faces when they heard that he had a few more women and children. But it really has nothing to do with me, my original body. Indeed, Chen Hao didn't feel anything even now. In the depths of his heart, he didn't even accept being a father. Sorry, he really didn't have the joy of being a father, let alone any feelings. Of course, Chen Hao knew that if he fused with the second anima, everything would be overturned. However, as of this moment, he was truly standing in the position of a bystander, complaining about the injustice of his second anima. Qi. Shaking his head, Chen Hao sent out a beam of energy. In an instant, a huge palace appeared around him, and he immersed himself in cultivation again. The Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree couldn't completely digest the endless vitality that it had devoured in a short period of time. Of course, this didn't require Chen Hao to complete, but Chen Hao had to participate. Before he left, Zhou Qinglong had given him a life seed that wasn't inferior to the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree. Even the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree couldn't devour it. It could only refine its own vitality and constantly approach its aura. Even for Chen Hao, this process was very profound and mysterious, and he could obtain great benefits from it. Chen Hao's goal was to refine the life seed that Zhou Qinglong had given him into his own body. If he could do it, he might obtain a freakish ability like Zhou Qinglong. His physical body could explode for fun. And with his true undying bloodline, how terrifying would he be? Kill. Kill. Let's fight. 3 months after Chen Hao and the other human cultivators joined them, those human cultivators, who were much slower than Hu Mainyang and the other human cultivators, finally saw the fleeing non-humankind cultivators from the edges and corners of the core area, who were running away from the core area like streams converging into rivers. Just like Hu Mainyang and the others back then, they didn't know what was going on. As soon as they saw it, they wanted to fight with their lives on the line. It was the last dawn, the last hope. All the human cultivators who rushed over at this moment didn't think about going back alive. However, when they charged forward one by one, they discovered that the foreign race cultivators were like birds startled by the twang of a bow. Many of them, who did not even have a physical body, turned around and fled as if they had seen ghosts. Their auras were not weak, but no one wanted to fight with them. What was going on? They didn't know, and they couldn't figure it out. But seeing this situation, the human cultivators who were puzzled, suddenly became more eager to fight, and chased after them madly. For so many years, they had been forced to flee like rats. Now, they encountered foreign race cultivators who were afraid to fight with them. No matter what the reason was, they would kill them first. It didn't take long for the human cultivators to figure out what had happened from the outsider cultivators. As they got closer and closer to the core area, the group of human cultivators grew larger and larger. The name of killing god Chun Hao, after the primitive mystic realm, once again became the pride of the human race and the nightmare of the 9 major foreign races. The dawn of hope, before the human cultivators fought desperately and had time to show their power, had gradually risen into the sky, cut through the endless darkness, and illuminated the entire 10 directions territory. They came to the core area with a pilgrimage heart, and saw a palace condensed with supreme divine powers. Above the palace, 2 words were condensed, blooming with bright light and endless pressure of Tao law: proud heaven. After surviving a disaster, the human cultivators' eyes were filled with joy and tears of excitement. They silently and spontaneously knelt on the ground. Another piece, and another piece, they knelt for a long time without getting up. They knelt and wept bitterly, pouring out and venting for their dead Tao companions and brothers and sisters. At some point, the sound of Sanskrit of the great Tao, which contained endless Tao law and immortal light, softly drifted between heaven and earth within a radius of tens of millions of miles around the palace. Countless 7-colored lotus flowers poured down like lotus light rain from the 9 heavens, bathing all the human cultivators in it. Another piece, and another piece, with tears in his eyes, the cultivator closed his eyes and naturally lay down on the ground, peacefully entering the land of dreams. In the dream, she seemed to see the majestic figure of a true immortal descending to save all living things. His handsome face and slender figure seemed to see the souls of countless brothers and sisters who had died in heaven. He waved his hand with a smile and left. The nerves that had been stretched taut for more than 1,000 years, and the essence qi and spirit that had been exhausted to the extreme, in this day's dream, forgot all the pain and troubles, and slowly recovered, filled up, and improved. The soft Sanskrit of the great Tao gradually became magnificent and vast. Splash, an endless amount of spirit spring water suddenly gushed out. The heaven and earth of the 10th direction territory moved and changed because of it. 100 years passed in the blink of an eye. In the 10th direction territory, with the palace condensed by Chun Hao as the core, the heaven and earth within a radius of tens of millions of miles were full of vitality, and the spiritual spring was torrential. The figures of the human cultivators had already sat cross-legged, and their bodies and minds were calm and peaceful. They were immersed in the magnificent and vast Tao sound, floating in the endless spiritual spring, like newborn babies, without any thoughts, desires. In a trance, their auras became stronger and stronger. Break and then stand, break out of the cocoon and become a butterfly. In the palace, Chun Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly stopped the chanting of the Sanskrit of the great Tao. A light flashed between his eyebrows, and a graceful and exquisite figure, full of essence, qi and spirit, and releasing an extremely powerful aura, curled up her smooth and jade-like body and floated in front of Chun Hao. Chun Hao gently took her into his arms. He bent down and stared at her. When he saw her slightly frowning but suddenly hiding her little face in his arms, Chun Hao showed a smile at the corner of his mouth. Then he gently raised his hand and cupped her beautiful little face. "You're sick and you need to be cured," Chun Hao suddenly said. The moment she opened her eyes, he kissed her seductive red lips. Third update, less than 3 days left, begging for monthly votes. The pursuers are fierce, please. Chapter 1075. Chun Shui, who had fallen into a deep sleep for 100 years, did not know what had happened, nor did she know what the current situation was. She only felt as if she had been reborn. Her physical body, spirit, and soul, in her perception, had all become much, much stronger. The entire heaven and earth, the entire world, in her perception, had become crystal clear. The moment she woke up, She felt that she was embraced by the most familiar smell. Even though she did not open her eyes, she knew that he was staring at her. It had been more than 10,000 years. It felt like a dream. She did not dare to open her eyes, afraid that it was really a dream. She hoped that this feeling would last forever and never disappear again. However, when her little face was held up, when the words, "You're sick, you have to be cured," entered her ears, she had no choice but to open her eyes. It was not a dream, it was all real. Seeing that face quickly approaching, she did not hide, did not close her eyes, and when her delicate lips were embraced, she even more passionately welcomed it. Even though there were many things she wanted to ask and clarify, at this moment, she threw everything to the back of her mind, a long-awaited kiss. Separated for more than 10,000 years, the abandoned lips. How could she let other emotions affect this intoxicating feeling? She, who was completely naked, responded passionately, took the initiative, kissed, hugged, tightly hugged, and wrapped around his body. Tears of happiness flowed out from her wide-open eyes that never closed. Her beautiful face flushed red. Her delicate body became hot and pink, and naturally, a tide that was born in a secluded path and died with the feeling of spring. How? Yes, want me. Yes? Want me. What? Want me. Want me. Want me. Qi. Chen Shui suddenly used strength and tore Chen Hao's Taoist robe. Greetings to the killing god. Greetings to the killing god. Greetings to the killing god. 1, 2, 3 more and more voices, from weak to strong, instantly became a majestic shout that resounded through heaven and earth. Every voice was filled with endless excitement, worship and reverence. The voices became louder and louder, and more people were shouting. Chen Shui, who was tearing apart Chen Hao's Taoist robe, suddenly froze. Her pretty face turned red, and her eyes were filled with resentment as she looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao hugged her and kissed her hard on the face. He hugged her fiercely and pinched her round buttocks with his big hands. Xiao Shui, it's not my fault. When I let you out, I stopped using my Tao voice. They've all woken up. I missed it too, I missed it even more than you. Bah! I don't want to. Qi. Chen Shui said shyly with resentment. After she finished speaking, a ray of light flashed between her eyebrows, and she immediately put on her underwear, soft armor, and a blue dress. She turned her face away in a charming manner, raised her chin and snorted. Chen Hao stared blankly, his heart filled with a strange feeling. Chen Shui, who had finally acted coquettishly, thought that Chen Hao would come to coax her, but there was no movement for a long time. She was so angry that she stomped her feet, but when she turned around, Chen Hao once again held her waist. Greetings to the killing god. Greetings to the killing god. What made Chen Hao and Chen Shui frown was that this greeting, which spoiled the mood, seemed to be deliberately against them, suddenly raised 2 pitches. Is the war over? Where are Xiao Wu and the others? Although Chen Shui did not know what was going on, she already knew the current scene. All the suffering had become a thing of the past, so she did not ask until now. They'll wake up in a few days. They're all here. Chen Hao pointed at his forehead and said, the war ended 100 years ago. I said that when you wake up, I'll pierce through the sky for you. No one can bully my Xiao Shui, my woman, my brothers and sisters. I want them to pay 1,000 times, 10,000 times the price. Next, I'll cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, leaving no survivors. In the 10 Directions territory, except for the human race, everyone will die. The arrogant and cold murderous aura became more and more intense with Chen Hao's words. It made Chen Shui's delicate body tremble, but her heart was filled with warmth. She stared at Chen Hao in a daze, brimming with pride and gratitude. This was her cultivation partner, her man. But Chen Hao suddenly changed the topic, and the murderous aura around him dissipated. He looked at Chen Shui and said, I'm thinking before the war starts, should we fight 1,000 rounds? Pfft. Chen Shui, who was moved by this man who wanted to pierce through the sky for her, suddenly burst out laughing. She pushed Chen Hao away and said, You're not serious, I don't want to think about it. Really? It's none of your business. Forget it, I'm not ready either. We've persevered until now, and we only care about persevering for a while more. We'll wait for you to step into Hongmeng. Let's go, we'll chase them away. As Chen Hao spoke, he took Chen Shui's hand. Endless immortal light and Taoist principles immediately surrounded the two of them. With a buzz, the two of them directly appeared in the void above the palace. Killing God. Killing God. Killing God. In an instant, the human clan cultivators who had been kneeling on the ground burst into cheers that resounded through the heavens and earth. Chen Hao stroked the void with one hand, and the hundreds of thousands of human cultivators felt an irresistible gentle force lift them up. It's been 100 years. Now instead of worshipping me, you should avenge your dead brothers and sisters and fellow humans. I believe that with your current strength, you'll be able to defeat the defeated foreign tribes. You go first, and Aotion's core generals will join you later. We only have one goal, and that is to kill all the foreign tribes in the 10 Directions territory. Kill. 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 Sensing the boundless killing intent from Chen Hao's body, all the human cultivators, who seemed to have been reborn, suddenly burst into loud shouts that resounded through heaven and earth. Their murderous auras condensed into a towering killing intent that dimmed the heavens and the earth. Go wash the 10 Directions territory with blood. Yes. Wash the 10 Directions territory with blood. Wash the 10 Directions territory with blood. Chen Hao didn't use his Taoist voice at all, but the remaining hundreds of thousands of human cultivators seemed to be filled with adrenaline. They automatically formed an army around the powerhouses and divided into 10 directions. The battle was monstrous, and they roared the slogan, "Wash the 10 Directions territory with blood." After watching everyone leave quickly, Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao in horror and said, How did you do it? What? Their strength has obviously improved a lot. How is that possible? Oh, it has nothing to do with me. I just helped them break, and then rebuild with the help of my Taoist voice and spiritual spring. You did the same, and so did Xiao Wu and the others. However, of course, the treatment is many times better than theirs. Chen Hao shrugged and said indifferently, 4th update, seeking monthly votes. Just a little bit more soon. Chapter 1076. You've changed. It hasn't changed. Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao's puzzled look, and the corners of her mouth revealed a happy smile as she continued. You've changed, but you haven't changed. Chen Shui couldn't pinpoint exactly what had changed. She only felt that Chen Hao was very different from before, but nothing seemed to have changed. The only thing that had changed was his strength. It might not be difficult to help her, Helian Wuxi, Lan Feng, and the others improve, but it was hundreds of thousands of human cultivators, and they were all Daoyuo Jingxian of the same realm. What kind of strength was needed to do that? Chen Hao didn't seem to care about the Dao sound and the help of the spirit spring. But how amazing was it that one person's Dao sound could affect hundreds of thousands of people at the same time? The spirit spring, the supreme grade spirit spring, and it was a supreme grade spirit spring that was many times better than before. It could supply hundreds of thousands of Daoyuo Jingxian for 100 years. What kind of wealth was that? But all of this was nothing to Chen Hao. This was the true portrayal of a man attaining the Tao and his chickens and dogs rising to heaven. A man attaining the Tao might not even consider the chickens and dogs around him, but the aura he released inadvertently had an impact on them. To Chen Hao, such an insignificant action could transform hundreds of thousands of human cultivators, allowing them to break out of their cocoons and become butterflies. Not to mention Chen Shui and the other most important women in Chen Hao's life, his brothers and sisters. Tell me. I want to know. The two of them didn't return to the palace, but sat together on the floor. Chen Shui snuggled up to Chen Hao's chest and said softly. She knew that such a feeling, such an opportunity to be alone, was very rare. Even if a cultivator had a long life, such an opportunity was very rare for her. He didn't belong to her alone. She couldn't have him alone. Love was selfish for everyone. No matter how much she wanted it, she could only share it with the other girls. Otherwise, it would only be a headache for Chen Hao. She wouldn't do that. What do you want to know? I want to know everything. The previous battle, the experience of more than 10,000 years, especially, who you know. Xiao Shui, are you talking about women? You're not allowed to hide anything. Yes, my dear wife. It's a long story. It's really hard to explain. Many times I have no choice but to do it. It's hard to talk about it. Xiao Shui. I won't say it, you see for yourself. T. Chen Hao directly condensed the light of memory and sent it to Chen Shui, who was glaring at him with resentful eyes. Annihilation, Nirvana of True Self, Second Anima, Milky Way Star Field, Extraterrestrial Life, Primal Chaos World, Hongming Domain, Milky Way Tunnel, 10 Directions Domain. Chen Shui watched bit by bit, her expression constantly changing, her mood fluctuating along with Chen Hao's experience. Chen Hao kept staring at Chen Shui's expression. He was a little nervous because he didn't hide anything from anyone. Almost all of his experience and state of mind at that time were completely presented to Chen Shui. Although white lies were good, Chen Hao wouldn't do that. From the beginning until now, he basically didn't hide anything from the women. A lie, even if it was white, would be covered up with countless lies. It didn't match his Dao heart, and he would let down the women. Several hours later, Chen Shui opened her eyes and looked at Chen Hao, then gently leaned on Chen Hao's shoulder again. In the future, let's never separate again, okay? Okay. In the future, your 9 lives or 10 lives, except when necessary, will be separated, okay? Okay. Now you try to give me a little more time, okay? Cough cough. Xiao Shui, once combined, 9 or 10 of me, even if separated, will still be me. There's no difference. Then put a label on 1/9 or 1/10 of you. And put my name on one of them. Give me as much as you can, okay? Chen Hao's forehead was full of black lines, and was full of regret and self-blame. Okay. Chen Shui. Will always be yours, and only belong to you. I'll be at your beck and call. Oh no, anytime and anywhere I'll be with you, and never be separated. Chen Hao gently pulled Chen Shui into his arms and said, then don't. If we don't divide evenly, others will have opinions. Puffed, Chen Shui said, and then burst out laughing and continued. I'm joking with you. In the future, after 9 lives are combined, don't separate anymore. Just take some time like now and accompany me. That's enough. Otherwise, if you have 9 or 10 of you, and you go around fooling around, there will be even more. Cough cough. Chen Hao was really speechless this time. How could this little brain have such a rich imagination? Xiao Shui, don't worry, I promise in the future that I won't. Sure. Chen Shui stretched out a finger, and blocked Chen Hao's lips and said, I don't need your promise. I've seen and understood that many times, just like what you said, I can't help myself. Maybe it's all destined. As long as you have me in your heart, it's fine. I have a very high awareness. And I already had such awareness when I wasn't with you. Xiao Wu, Xiao Lian Yu. They all started earlier than me. But I didn't expect so many. But it seems to be inevitable. In the future, we will never leave you again, even if we stay in the big world in your mind. We have to look after you. I found that every time you leave, there will always be a woman who will automatically come to you and automatically have sex with you. Whether it's kindness or resentment, whether it's hatred or love, it's all the same in the end. Cough cough. Chen Hao was embarrassed, and he felt even more embarrassed. There was nothing to argue, and nothing to say. The facts seemed to be like this. Xiao Shui, don't just talk about me. In these 10,000 years, I haven't had time to understand your situation. Show me. Chen Hao asked. You still don't know? I don't know. When I saw you, you were all seriously injured. When I saw Xiao Wu and the others, perhaps because they saw me, their bodies and minds were on the verge of collapse. I simply stimulated them to collapse, and they fell into a deep sleep like you. Our experience is very simple. In addition to cultivation, there is still cultivation, and there is also the development of believers of Aotion. There is nothing else. Details. I want to know all the details. Show me. Chen Hao said. No need, right? Chen Shui said. Do you still have something to hide from me? It's really nothing. It's just some meaningless things. All right. Take a look. Chen Shui spoke helplessly when she saw Chen Hao staring at her. And then a strand of light of memory slowly rose up from between her brows. 5th update, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1077. Cultivating, praying, developing believers. Cultivating, praying, cultivating. When Chen Hao finished looking at the light of memories that Chen Shui had refined, he did not say anything and only hugged Chen Shui tighter. Simple, pure. Just like what Chen Shui had said, she did not have much experience at all. For more than 10,000 years, cultivating and praying had taken up almost all of her and Helian Wuxi's time. Although Chen Shui had deliberately played down the feelings when praying, how could Chen Hao not feel it? More than 10,000 years of waiting, more than 10,000 years of unforgettable yearning. Women were that simple. Perhaps this was the difference between men and women. Men would love every woman they met, and would occasionally use their lower body to consider problems. But women, the vast majority of them could do it from the beginning to the end. Once someone intruded into her heart, they would become the only one, making her give everything, give all her feelings, and could not tolerate anyone else. Roar. In the world of Chen Hao's mind, in the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood, coiling dragon stepped on the mountain of white bones and roared to the sky. Rumble. Whoosh. The mountain of bones collapsed, the sea of blood roared, and endless fear and pressure, as if frightened by the terrifying aura on coiling dragon's body, retreated far away. At the same time, the immortal scripture Tao marks that Chen Hao had condensed also disappeared in the sea of blood, and the mountain of corpses under coiling dragon's bright eyes. Senior brother! Senior brother! Coiling dragon roared excitedly to the sky. Amazing! In the outside world, Chen Hao, who was sitting side by side with Chen Shui and enjoying the faint warmth, felt the aura that suddenly came from the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood, and was slightly surprised. What? Chen Shui turned her head, raised her beautiful face and asked. Coiling dragon. This guy's potential is endless. The divine race's divine king body was used by him, but only temporarily. I didn't expect. You will know when you see it. Qi. As Chen Hao spoke, a crystal light flashed between his eyebrows. Boom. Whoosh. A raging and violent aura, along with the crystal light between Chen Hao's eyebrows, suddenly appeared in front of the two. The moment it appeared, an earth-shattering pressure and terrifying blood qi exploded the air, forming gusts of wind. Ha ha ha! Coiling dragon laughed wildly. With a boom, his physical body, true yuan essence qi, and soul suddenly soared once more. That aura, that appearance, let alone Chen Shui. Even Chen Hao was stunned. This is Lu Qianri's body? Chen Shui asked in disbelief. Aha. Sister-in-law, of course. However, this body seems to have been tailor-made for me. Look, the compatibility is perfect. It has completely transformed into my appearance. Ha ha ha. This is great. If she really looks like Lu Qian, she would be fucking ugly. When Pan Long saw Chen Hao and Chen Shui together, his eyes flashed. After a moment of surprise, he immediately laughed excitedly. Ha ha ha. Pan Long's words made Chen Hao laugh out loud. Chen Shui also couldn't help laughing. The two of them didn't have any objections to this tall and sturdy body that was like an iron tower. However, if they were to say that it was handsome, it really wasn't on the same level. To be honest, although Lu Qianri was lacking, the appearance of his physical body was definitely much better than Pan Long's current appearance. However, the two of them were naturally more happy to see Pan Long's current appearance. Sister-in-law, I thought that my improvement was fast enough. I didn't expect that. You're not inferior to me. It's not the same. Your improvement was completely through your own tempering. I only had this transformation with the help of your senior brother, Chen Shui said with a rare happy smile on her face. Pan Long's physical body had collapsed and his origin spirit had left. Ever since she met up with Chen Hao, she had fallen into a deep slumber. Now that she was able to see Pan Long come back from the dead, and be even stronger than before, Chen Shui felt joy from the bottom of her heart. Junior brother, I'm thinking, your soul origin. Do you think it has something to do with the Divine King physique? Your compatibility is beyond imagination. Chen Hao said thoughtfully while rubbing his chin as he stared at Pan Long, who was as tall as 4 or 5 people. It can't be right? Senior brother, you can't say that. Your junior brother is 100% pure savage tribe bloodline. When I ascend to the Grand Mist realm, I'll try adding some blood essence to your body, or refine it into a new body. You can try again. If it's still 100% compatible with your body, it means that your soul origin is a perverse existence. If that's really the case, I can let you try refining it with my undying bloodline origin. Ah, that's great. However, senior brother, there's no need to try. I've taken over the body of a foreign cultivator before. Although he was originally a weakling, my compatibility with him was not good at all even after refining for a long time. Lu Qianrui's body was just a coincidence, and it just so happened to suit me, Pan Long said. Oh, but you have to try. Although Lu Qianrui's physical body is strong, and it suits your temperament, the physical body of a god tribe is still limited by the laws of divine abilities. Otherwise, even if you don't have an extreme level physical body, as your cultivation level increases, you will become one, Chen Hao said. Oh, that's true. Senior brother, are the sisters-in-law, Lan Feng, and the others here? Pan Long did not continue with his question. Instead, he asked what he was most concerned about. When he entered the mountain of corpses and sea of blood, he was also cut off from the outside world. They're all here. Senior brother. Bugs and Xiaonan. Is there any hope? You have countless laws of divine abilities. Is there any way? Although Pan Long did not want to talk about it, he could not help but ask. Xiaonan was Chen Hao's younger brother. After so many years of being together, they had a brotherly relationship, and he treated Xiaonan as his younger brother. Du Jing was also his sworn brother who grew up fighting with him. When he learned that Du Jing had sacrificed himself and turned into countless poisonous bugs, he even wanted to die. Chen Hao's expression darkened and he said, "For now, I don't know. Wait until I reach the Hongmeng realm. Then we'll see." 3,000 great paths and endless divine abilities symbolized the peak of a cultivator's existence. Unfortunately, Chen Hao was still limited by his cultivation level, and he still understood very little. Oh, senior brother, sisters-in-law, then I'll go first. A hint of pain appeared on Pan Long's face, but he quickly suppressed it. Then his eyes shone with boundless killing intent as he spoke. Go. Chen Hao and Chen Shui did not say much. Naturally, they knew what Pan Long was going to do. How? Accompany them. Accompany each of them alone. I'm going too. Okay. Life and death are up to fate. We have to be more open-minded. Chen Shui said softly. Then, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed Chen Hao lightly on the lips. Then her body slowly dissipated, turning into a gust of wind and flashing away. First update. Transitional chapter. Writing very, very slowly. Pain. Dark Mountain continues. Chapter 1078. Bastard. In Chen Hao's mind, in an independent space, Hu Meinyang slowly woke up. The moment she woke up and saw that she was completely naked, she was shocked at first. Then her face flushed red. Her eyes flickered for a while before she clenched her fists and cursed at the void. Whoosh! Immediately, the Tao laws around her surged, and her lithe body, which was faintly flickering with runes, shot up. Breaking and re-establishing, breaking out of the cocoon and becoming a butterfly. I won't thank you, bastard. You said thank you to me in front of so many people. Not only did you embarrass me, but you also transmitted your last sentence to me. What do you want them to think? Hu Meinyang gritted her teeth as she sensed the surging power in her body, and the transformation of her soul and state of mind. She was embarrassed. Very embarrassed. She had always thought highly of herself and was as proud as a peacock. It would be strange if she did not take Chen Hao's thank you for treating her as an outsider. Although there was no agreement between them from what he did, in which aspect did he not already regard him as his path protector? Although he had explained it before she fell into a deep sleep, he had transmitted his words. What would Helian Wuxia and the others think of her? It was not strange for such petty thoughts to appear in a woman's mind. In particular, she had already regarded Chen Hao as her guardian. In front of Chen Hao's companions, she could not ignore it. Bastard! Who are you scolding? Hu Meinyang shrieked. She suddenly covered her breasts and closed her legs. At the same time, countless Tao laws rolled out. Her undergarments, soft armor, and Taoist robes covered her body. Rogue. I can't help it. Since I want to help you temper, I can't wear clothes. Besides, it's not like I haven't seen it before. Chen Hao said with a smile. In his heart, he could not help but admire Hu Meinyang's amazing willpower. According to his estimation, Hu Meinyang, who had just woken up from a deep sleep, would at least be confused for a while like Chen Shui. He did not expect Hu Meinyang to jump up right after he brought her out. She was naked and alive in front of him. This visual conflict was much stronger than when she was in a deep sleep. Boom. Hu Meinyang was already angry. Now that she saw Chen Hao's smile, his indifferent appearance, and his shameless words, she became even angrier. Her aura suddenly surged, and an incomparably resplendent seven-colored light bloomed from between her eyebrows. She punched towards Chen Hao. As expected of an untamed rouge horse, Chen Hao's eyes narrowed. He gently opened his hand, and an endless amount of immortal light and rolling Taoist principles annihilated Hu Meinyang's powerful punch. At the same time, he directly grabbed her hand. Don't be discouraged. Although I haven't stepped into the Hongmeng realm, I'm still considered a Hongmeng. If you have the energy, go kill non-humankind warriors. Bastard, why are you doing this to me? How did I treat you? Fine. Just pretend I didn't say anything. You really think I'm going to follow you? I'm leaving. Hiss. Hu Meinyang felt Chen Hao's iron-like hand that could not be shaken at all. Her delicate body trembled. After she finished speaking, she abruptly pulled away and shot up into the sky. Whiz. Bam. However, as soon as she flew out, she crashed into Chen Hao's chest. Her eyes were almost filled with stars. Hu Meinyang immediately realized what was going on. She snorted coldly and turned around to flee in another direction. Bam. However, Chen Hao was like a teleportation wall that blocked her path again. Hu Meinyang gritted her teeth. She tried again, and again, and again. After dozens of times, tears welled up in her eyes. She glared fiercely at Chen Hao and said, If you don't care about me, why did you keep me? If I don't care about you, why did I keep you? Since when did you care about me? Since when did I not care about you? You just don't. What do I have to do to be considered caring? Like this? Whiz. Chen Hao, who was standing in front of Hu Meinyang, suddenly moved forward and kissed Hu Meinyang forcefully. Hu Meinyang struggled but could not break free. She suddenly made up her mind and opened her delicate lips, allowing Chen Hao to enter. Then, Chen Hao suddenly screamed and retreated with his tongue sticking out. How dare you bite me, Hu Meinyang? I'll bite you. I'll bite you to death. Come on, come on. Chen Hao stared at Hu Meinyang angrily. Hu Meinyang was not afraid at all. On the contrary, seeing Chen Hao like this, she was very happy to provoke him. After the two of them stared at each other for a few seconds, Chen Hao suddenly laughed and said, This is the true color of a rouge horse. So you like to bite? I like to bite you. I'll bite you to death. You dare to bully me now that you've grown up? Dream on. Actually, I like to be bitten by you too. Chen Hao said. You're crazy. Hu Meinyang could not understand what the eccentric Chen Hao was trying to do, but the look in his eyes was very shameless. Don't stop me. From now on, I have nothing to do with you. I don't want to see you anymore. Chi. Hu Meinyang leaped up again, but after flying for a moment, she suddenly stopped. All right, then you can go. Chen Hao did not chase after her. Instead, he shook his head and said. Hu Meinyang was furious. I'll fight you to the death. Chi. This time, Hu Meinyang did not leave. She directly pounced on Chen Hao with bared fangs and brandished claws. She did not use her divine ability at all. Anyway, it was useless even if she used it. Since she did not use it, Chen Hao naturally did not use it either. In the end, Hu Meinyang rushed over and pushed Chen Hao down. She pressed on top of him and opened her mouth to bite everywhere. Chen Hao seemed to let out a miserable scream as he struggled with all his might. After Chen Hao resisted a few times, he blocked Hu Meinyang with his mouth and bit her. Chen Hao did not hesitate to attack again. His tongue was still bitten, but this time he did not care at all. He continued. Not only that, But his big hand also wandered around this arrogant rouge horse's body without restraint. After a while, Hu Meinyang's struggling gradually quieted down and fell into a serious kiss. Hu Meinyang knew that she had lost. She had lost completely. Although she had lost a long time ago, at least she did not lose face. But now, she had lost everything. This was obviously Chen Hao's intention, but she still fell into it step by step in the end. Just like how she could not control her grievances and tears before falling into a deep sleep. Meinyang, actually, I really like to bite. Why don't you bite me? When they were very restless, Chen Hao and Hu Meinyang separated from each other, and didn't continue. They lay on their backs and didn't look at each other. After calming down for a while, Chen Hao suddenly turned his head and looked at Hu Meinyang. You're crazy. Hu Meinyang glared at Chen Hao and said. However, Chen Hao chuckled and whispered something in Hu Meinyang's ear. Second update. Begging for votes. Please everyone. Chapter 1079. Hu Meinyang frowned slightly and said, What's wrong with that? What do you mean? Cough cough. Alright. Do what you need to do. When you return to the vast universe galaxy, resign from your saintess position. How can I do that? I need a successor. Successor my ass. The reason your Misty Rain Pavilion has those rules is entirely because your strength is weak. I've given them a large amount of spiritual items and magic treasures, so that the Misty Rain Pavilion can directly develop into a top sect. When the time comes, I'll help you settle it. My woman, I don't like to show my face in public. I don't want you to spread your peacock tail in front of others and attract bees and butterflies. Take off your mask of hypocrisy and live your domineering and true self. I don't know how to say anything touching, and I don't know how to coax you. 10,000 years ago, we didn't have an agreement. Today, 10,000 years later, you and Little Snow are harmonious, or rather, merged into one body. I know what that means. Of course, the narrow-minded you might feel wronged if I say this. Actually, you don't have to. In the primal mystic realm, we went from being enemies to being enemies. You and I know what that feels like. A woman like you is something that all men want to conquer. I'm not a woman. Feelings are always mutual. When you conquer, you'll also be conquered. Go Little Wu is awake. Little Snow and Coiling Dragon are already there. Hu Meinyang was a little confused by Chen Hao's string of overbearing words, but this time she felt very comfortable listening to it. She asked, You haven't seen Xiaowu and the others yet? When she saw that Chen Hao didn't answer, she curled her lips and glanced at Chen Hao with a seductive expression. She snorted and suddenly transformed into a flowing light that left proudly. Little Wu and the others just didn't wake up earlier than you. Once a woman falls, she becomes a fool. She's so easy to trick. Alas, I'm too awesome. How can there be a rouge horse in this world that I can't tame? If Hu Meinyang were to hear Chen Hao's muttering, she would definitely go mad with anger. Little girl, didn't I tell you not to look and listen? A burst of laughter suddenly sounded out in his mind, causing Chen Hao to frown slightly. I'm sorry, I just happened to be looking for you. I just happened to overhear. Chen Hao, you're so domineering, so strong, so manly, but do you like to bite? Fuck. That Hu Meinyang doesn't even understand such shallow things. How stupid. That's called pure okay? Do you think everyone in the Skyriver sector can understand all this nonsense? Chen Hao reprimanded with a dark expression on his face. The spirit chi in the Skyriver sector had been extinguished, and the civilization on the road of science and technology was almost exactly the same as the civilization on Earth. The current state of society, culture, morals, media, communication, and so on, if one did not know that they were two different worlds, there would be no difference at all. Including the language and popular things, everything was exactly the same. This was a very inconceivable and unbelievable thing, but it was the truth. Chen Hao even suspected that there was some kind of connection between Earth and the Skyriver sector. I'm still very pure, don't you understand? You're a little girl, aren't you shy? What's there to be shy about? I'm destined to be your woman. Isn't it normal to talk about this? Hurry up and say it. In the future, don't peep without my permission. I really don't understand. Your divine sense is obviously very weak, But you can hide it from me. You're so annoying. After you fuse, you'll find that the person you like is no worse than them. Big sister, can we talk about it after the fusion? Xiaowu is awake. What's the matter? Hurry up and say it. Open the mountain of corpses and blood sea to me. My consciousness wants to go in and cultivate. Little Nurse Lu Hui said unhappily. So fierce? Okay, if you're not afraid, go in. Qi. Chen Hao directly sent out a strand of divine sense, opening the mountain of corpses and blood sea to the little nurse. Also your brother, Du Jing. They're all dead. Don't you want to go to the place where they died? At least set up a cenotaph to mourn them, right? You only know how to be intimate with your woman. Cough. This is already the world of cultivation, not you. Okay, I should go. Maybe they really left something behind before they died. Chen Hao wanted to refute, but then his heart sank and he muttered. What Chen Hao didn't know was that in the sealed space in his mind, little Nurse Lu Hui's pretty face revealed a smug look. I'll give you a surprise. The second life likes me the most. I want you to like me too. Although it's all you. Who knows when you'll fuse. So handsome, so manly. Although the little nurse had awakened some memories that didn't belong to her, these memories didn't have any effect on her state of mind. Only the awakening of divine sense and unique skills. Her personality didn't change at all. A light flashed between his eyebrows, and Hellion Wuxia, who had been awake for a while and was neatly dressed, appeared in front of Chen Hao. Her pretty face was as cold as the moon, her graceful figure, and the ethereal aura after the awakening of the endless cycle of reincarnation, made Hellion Wuxia's unique temperament even more soul-stirring. Hellion Wuxia, who had just broken out of her cocoon and become a butterfly, her soul, state of mind and physical body had all undergone a metamorphosis. As she looked around, bright chaotic divine light bloomed from her eyes. Her aura was even stronger than that of Hu Meinyang and Qin Shui. She just stood there, but she gave people a feeling that they couldn't bear to blaspheme and didn't dare to look directly at her. Goddess. Even Chen Hao couldn't help but praise her in his heart. It wasn't that Hellion Wuxia was more beautiful than Qin Shui and Hu Meinyang, but the extraordinary temperament of her endless cycle of reincarnation wasn't something that Qin Shui and Hu Meinyang could have now. How? Come, let brother take good care of you. Chen Hao, who was a little stunned, immediately threw the goddess to the back of his mind. No matter how noble and cold the goddess was, she was still his woman. As he spoke, he pulled Hellion Wuxia into his arms. Unlike Hu Meinyang, before falling into a coma, Hellion Wuxia, who knew that Chen Hao even had several children, directly asked to see all of Chen Hao's experiences. She was very puzzled. She wasn't surprised that Chen Hao had a few more women. What was strange was that he even had children. Cultivators weren't mortals. They could only have children if they wanted to. Before they were ready to have children, it was necessary to cultivate energy into qi. She didn't think that Chen Hao would have the idea of having children now. How could he have children? Tianhe sector. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is extinct. The chaotic space outside also has no spiritual energy of heaven and earth? How? Is this true? What Chen Hao didn't expect was that Hellion Wuxia, who had just looked at the light of memory he had condensed for a while, suddenly showed a look of surprise and looked at him to ask. Until now, there are only 13 votes today. I'm crying. The pursuers are getting closer and farther away. There's only a little more than a day left. I really don't want to be defeated. Please everyone, with the support of the monthly votes, Wuxian. Wuxian continued to write. Chapter 1080. Of course it's true. What's wrong? Chen Hao was puzzled. Nirvana space. It might be the Nirvana space. Hellion Wuxia said with a hint of excitement and surprise. Nirvana space? What's that? Chen Hao was even more puzzled. Not to mention that his realm was not there yet. Even if his realm was there, he who cultivated without a teacher did not have much understanding of the concept of the Nirvana space. In my awakened memories, before I was sent into the endless cycle of reincarnation by my master and many powerful experts, I heard them mention the Nirvana space. The characteristic of the Milky Way sector should be the Nirvana space. It's a space formed after the collapse of the greater thousand worlds controlled by the immortal emperor and peak existences. All the spiritual energy of heaven and earth would condense into the body of the immortal emperor, turning into the spirit of all things and falling into the eternal cycle of reincarnation. When he truly awakens again, the nirvana space would once again become a greater thousand world. The ancient powerful figures and cultivators would all see the light of day again and start a new era. Oh, Chen Hao was slightly surprised. At that time, my master and the other side, the master of our greater thousand world, was only a hair's breadth away from becoming an immortal emperor. But it was just a hair's breadth away that caused our greater thousand world to have no hope of starting a new era. Little Wu, you mean that when you reach the immortal emperor realm, you can revive all the collapsed cultivators? I'm not very clear about the details. At that time, they were preparing to work together to condense the inextinguishable imprint for me. I only heard it. However, it's all related to the immortal emperor's incarnation of the spirit of all things. That's the endless cycle of reincarnation of the immortal emperor. The spirit of all things gives birth to all things in the world. As long as there's a little imprint left in the nirvana space, after he fully awakens and recovers his strength, he can trace back to the origin and be reborn again. I don't know if it's a real revival. Maybe it is. Hellion Wuxia naturally knew what Chen Hao was thinking, but she really did not know the details. Even her master back then did not know. The immortal emperor was only a legendary existence. Even in today's the great world of Xiandi, it was uncertain whether there was an immortal emperor. Lu Hui. While Chen Hao was frowning in contemplation, Hellion Wuxia suddenly spoke again. Could it be the soul of all living things? Through the light of Chen Hao's memory, Hellion Wuxia had learned about the existence of the little nurse, Lu Hui. She also learned that Chen Hao had taken all the natural people of the Skyriver sector into his mind's macro world. Of course, he also knew that Lu Hui had an innate spirit body, and that she had obtained an astonishing improvement in a short period of time. To be precise, it was an inconceivable improvement. In particular, in the memories that Chen Hao had passed to her, Lu Hui's divine sense was extremely mysterious. She was clearly only in the heaven immortal realm, but Chen Hao could not lock onto her. Hellion Wuxia couldn't help but be suspicious. When Chen Hao heard Hellion Wuxia's words, his heart skipped a beat. The more he thought about it, the more likely it was. You wait, Chen Hao said to Hellion Wuxia. After he finished speaking, his divine sense directly integrated into the sealed space in his mind. Lu Hui. Ah, what are you doing? Chen Hao suddenly transformed his divine sense into a form and entered the sealed space in his mind. When he locked onto Lu Hui's aura and appeared in front of her, he was shocked. At the same time, he was also shocked. She was sweating profusely. Her whole body was filled with a Dao Law aura that was weak to Chen Hao, but was so mysterious that he could not understand it at all. In front of Lu Hui, there were 3 pure bloodline vitality pulsating. Chen Hao, why did you suddenly come? I was cultivating. You scared me to death. Lu Hui's eyes were full of panic, but she immediately pretended to be angry and said, What is this? Chen Hao's expression was full of shock as he looked at the 3 pulsating bloodline vitality. His eyes widened, and from shock to excitement he said with a trembling voice, It's nothing. As Lu Hui spoke, she suddenly waved her hand, and the 3 balls of bloodline vitality entered between her eyebrows. Chen Hao grabbed Lu Hui's shoulder and stared straight at Lu Hui, who was avoiding his gaze, and asked, Nirvana space, spirit of all things. It's you, right? Ah. What nirvana space, spirit of all things? After hearing Chen Hao's words, Lu Hui was no longer panicked. She stared at Chen Hao, who was formed by his divine sense, and asked curiously, Still pretending? Chen Hao asked. Chen Hao, why are you so fierce? I wanted to give you a surprise. I'm so tired, and you're still fierce to me. The nurse, Lu Hui, looked at Chen Hao's fierce appearance and immediately said with grievance, tears welling up in her eyes, You really don't know? Chen Hao looked at the nurse's expression and his heart softened. His urgent tone became gentler. You're talking about nirvana space, spirit of all things. How would I know? I just wanted to help you save your brother, Du Jing and Lin Xia. I'm so tired. You're still fierce to me. Save. Chen Hao's expression suddenly became incomparably excited again. He said, Little Hui you can really do it? At this time, Chen Hao was sure that the nurse Lu Hui was the spirit of all things that Hellion Wuxia had mentioned. In his previous life, she was an immortal emperor-level expert, the master of the Skyriver sector. Otherwise, how could she save people whose bodies and souls were destroyed with such a low level of cultivation? Moreover, although the divine power law that the nurse had condensed just now had a weak aura, its profoundness had completely exceeded his scope of understanding. This was definitely not something that an ordinary person could do. I should be able to. It's just that my current realm is too weak. When I use this divine power law, it's easier to save some dead flowers and plants, kittens and puppies. It's difficult to save those who have just died. It's harder to save those who have been dead for a long time. It's even harder. It consumes too much energy. This is also the reason why you spent so much energy in the Spirit Spring Sea previously. Moreover, the sensing range of my divine sense is too small. Although I've integrated a lot of it into the 10-direction territory, it's still very slow. It's too difficult to capture the aura that they left behind. It's also because of this that I asked you to go to the place where they died. It's easier that way. Now I'm only using the bloodline aura in the Mountain of Corpses and Blood Sea to trace their origin aura according to the power of their prayers that you obtained in the second life, and condense their bloodline origin for them. You can even condense this? Yes. I can condense the bloodline origin of everyone around you, but I can't condense yours. My divine sense can't sense it. Also, I can help Ling, and Li Yang's souls to nurture and restore them. Aren't you fierce to me? Girl. Why didn't you tell me earlier? How can I do that? If I told you earlier, what would you do if you were merciful and didn't kill those bastards of the outsiders who caused people to die with you in the second life? I was waiting for you to kill all of them before giving you a surprise. I'm the first female lead hiding behind the scenes. You must have watched too many brainless dramas. Fine. You really don't know anything about the silent space and the soul of all things? Didn't you awaken some memories? Fourth update, begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1081. I've only awakened the laws of the divine ability. Nirvana space, soul of all living things, what are they? Do they have anything to do with me? Soul of all living things sounds very powerful. Could it be? As Nurse Lu Hui spoke, she suddenly became excited and jumped up. Chen Hao, could it be me, could it be me? Chen Hao choked. After staring at the girl for half a minute, he said, It's not you. Watch less of those stupid dramas in the future. Then why are you asking me this? You made me excited for nothing. Alright. We'll go to the place where Xiaonan collapsed immediately. What else can I help you with? If you need anything, just say the word. As long as I can do it, I'll satisfy you. The sooner the better. Chen Hao said. I don't know if you can help me, but you want to let me out. Forget it, if I go out the other you won't be happy. Who cares? Can you go out faster? That's you, don't be so cruel, okay? There's no need to go out. There's an abundant supply of heaven and earth spiritual chi here. It won't be slow. Besides, I thought about it, before you fuse, it's better not to see them, lest they get bullied by you. Chen Hao opened his mouth to speak, but he couldn't say anything. He really didn't know what to say to this nurse. It seemed like she didn't have any concept of his second life and first life, completely treating them as the same person. Moreover, she seemed very sure that after he fused, he would hold her in the palm of his hand. He couldn't be sure of anything else, but Chen Hao could at least be sure that she was definitely not more important than the other girls. Even if Chen Hao was sure that this girl should be the legendary soul of all living things, an existence at the peak of the immortal emperor level. Then you continue. I'll leave now. Oh, you're leaving just like that? Is there anything else? You're so excited and happy. Shouldn't you express your gratitude to the female lead? Chen Hao stared at the young nurse who had a serious expression on her face. She slowly closed her eyes and lifted her small face. She almost stood on her tiptoes, her heartbeat quickened slightly, her breathing quickened slightly, and her face turned slightly red. He frowned slightly and hesitated for a moment. In the end, he transformed into his human form and kissed the young nurse on her cherry lips. Then he ran out of the room in terror. Even Chen Hao couldn't help but admire his superhuman charm. The immortal emperor, the spirit of all living beings, was actually so affectionate to him. At the same time, Chen Hao was a little worried about the future. Fuck, an existence like this whose cultivation base would soar by leaps and bounds. Once it surpassed him, or awakened its true memories, what would he do if it came to settle the score with him? This must be taken seriously. Moreover, he had to keep a distance from him. He could not afford to make an irreversible mistake. Unless she had not fully awakened by the time he reached the immortal emperor level, otherwise, even if she really had feelings for him after the fusion, he had to restrain himself. That's not right. If she's really in existence at the immortal emperor level, even if the greater thousand worlds were destroyed and she transformed into the spirit of all living beings and entered the eternal cycle of reincarnation, she should have her own set and restrictions. There's no reason for her to be so easily subdued by me, right? Could it be that I'm also an incredible existence? The moment his mind stepped out of the space in his mind, Chen Hao was puzzled. That's impossible. I'm indeed a special existence, but it's because of my own efforts. Chen Hao knew very well how he was born. That's not right either. At this moment, Chen Hao was suddenly at a loss. He was him in his previous life, which was the crystallization of Li Yuan's memories, the fusion of Li Yuan's and Yi Xian's genes. However, if this kind of technological method gave birth to a life, the soul would still come from reincarnation, right? Fuck it. I'll figure it out one day. Chen Hao had a headache thinking about it, and gave up directly. Perhaps he was really not simple, but what did it have to do with him? He already had his own path, and his own complete life. Chen Hao did not think that he would destroy this life, just like Xiao Wu gave up her life before the eternal cycle of reincarnation for him, and focused on this life. Then the him in this life would be the real him. The previous life is over, I only want this life. How, what did you say? Nothing. Xiao Wu, where Xiaonan died, do you still remember? Of course I remember. It's at the edge of the area. Why? Helian Wuxia asked. Take me there. Xiaonan can be resurrected. Ah, Lu Hui should be the spirit of all living beings. Chen Hao transmitted his voice to Helian Wuxia. Don't make a sound. Don't let her hear you. She doesn't know her real situation. Oh, Helian Wuxia replied via sound transmission, but her cold little face was filled with shock and excitement. Xiaonan could be resurrected. This was undoubtedly something to be excited about. Moreover, since Xiaonan could be resurrected, could Du Jing, Lin Xia, and the core members of Aotian be resurrected? After Helian Wuxia pointed out the direction, Chen Hao directly grabbed Helian Wuxia and disappeared with a buzz. The great teleportation technique was activated to the extreme in an instant. Even the small wisdom number 1 could not achieve this speed. Helian Wuxia did not see the scene of Chen Hao capturing the 9 golden dragons and killing millions of foreign race cultivators with her own eyes. At this moment, she felt Chen Hao's abnormal speed, but it made her have a clearer understanding of Chen Hao's strength. She looked up to a tall mountain. He was both happy and helpless. He was happy because of Chen Hao's strength, but helpless because he was also considered to be at the top of the top geniuses. However, even though they were at the same level, there was a huge gap between their strengths. He couldn't even look up to Chen Hao. On the way to the place where Xiaonan collapsed, in Chen Hao's mind world, besides Long Ting who was still sleeping, Chen Yan, Xia Yuyu, Tantai Lian, Leng Ninggle, Bailey Ningbing, Lan Feng, and other members of Aotian woke up one after another. Unfortunately, Chen Hao did not have the chance to communicate with the girls who had been separated for more than 10,000 years. When everyone knew that Chen Hao had the ability to resurrect Xiaonan, Du Jing, and Lin Xia, they were shocked and excited, especially Lan Feng, who was so excited that he cried. However, Chen Hao and Helian Wuxia did not tell everyone about the spirit of all living beings. This was too exaggerated for everyone, so it was better to keep it a secret for the time being. Anyway, all kinds of miraculous things had happened to him before. so no one would be too surprised if this terrifying ability was attributed to him. All of you, hand over all the magic treasures, items, and so on related to Xiaonan, and condense all your memories about Xiaonan. Half a month later, they finally arrived at the edge of the Shifeng territory, where Chunnan collapsed. At this moment, apart from Long Ting who was still in a deep slumber, Chunhao brought out the great world in his mind and said, "Fifth update, looking for monthly votes." Chapter 1082. Chunnan's memories would allow Lu Hui to better grasp Chunnan's aura. Everything related to Chunnan contained Chunnan's aura imprint. The more she collected, the less effort Lu Hui would have. If there wasn't even the slightest imprint, then even the cleverest housewife couldn't cook without rice. Even Lu Hui wouldn't be able to revive Chunnan with her heaven-defying inherited abilities. Of course, that was impossible. Not to mention anything else, just the power of faith that Chunhao's second anima had collected was enough for Lu Hui. Although Lu Hui was only in the celestial immortal realm, the time when Chunnan, Du Jing, Lin Xia, and the others died was very short compared to the time when the nirvana space disappeared in the cultivation world. Secondly, in the 10-direction territory, the primordial qi was chaotic. It was the existence that blocked all the mysteries of heaven, and had the ability to seal the aura after the collapse. Without a doubt, this was the greatest help to the still weak Lu Hui. Chunyan condensed the light of Chunnan's memories, and everything related to Chunnan. She had long since cried her eyes out. Lu Hui and Chunnan were twins, so they had been inseparable since they were young. Not to mention the things Chunnan left behind. Even Chunyan herself could be detected by Lu Hui's subtle perception. Lu Hui could sense a large amount of Chunnan's aura imprints. "Little sister, don't cry." After Chunhao absorbed all the memories into his mind, he pulled the grief-stricken Chunyan into his arms and gently patted her back, comforting her. "Big brother. Second brother, can you really revive him?" "Yes, trust me. Don't cry. Follow Xiaowu and the others and join the human army. Lead them and kill. 60 years. It'll take around 60 years. When you come back again, little Nan will appear in front of you. Go. Kill. 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 Kill." In the 10 directions domain, the scales of victory had completely tilted towards the humans of the vast universe galaxy. As General Aotian led the remnants of the human army to slaughter in all directions, the foreign battlefield that connected the 10 directions star fields and the ancient chaos boundless universe began to play out. It was a tragic war that hadn't occurred since the 10 directions star fields were divided. Since ancient times, the foreign battlefields had always been the battlefields where the various galaxies clashed. There were killings all the time, but under normal circumstances, these battles could only be called battles and not wars or campaigns. That was because the cultivators from the various galaxies chose to fight with the foreign races in order to train themselves. There was no distinction between friend and foe. Even the cultivators from the various galaxies would kill each other in the face of benefits. It was similar to the situation in the primitive mystic realm. However, at this moment, the flames of war had never been seen before in the foreign battleground. The number of non-human experts and cultivators was millions of times more than before. And all of this was aimed at the humans of vast universe galaxy. It was just that the 9 galaxies now had their own choices and goals to choose from. On the surface, it seemed as if they were fighting alone, but they were only exposing themselves. Kill. Boom. Angry roars resounded throughout the heavens and earth. The sounds of battle and explosions could be heard everywhere. The flames of war burned everywhere. Corpses littered the ground and blood flowed like rivers. It was 100 times, 1,000 times more terrifying than the 10-direction territory. Hongmeng Supremes flew everywhere. Daoyuo Jingxian was not even qualified to be cannon fodder. This was the battlefield of the Hongmeng Supremes. How many Daoyuo Jingxian Supremes could compare to a Hongmeng Supremes of the same talent? This was a battle that was completely beyond the 10-direction territory. Among the 10 galaxies, the real deciding factor was the number and combat strength of the Supremes of Hongmeng. The humans of vast universe galaxy did not have an advantage in terms of numbers compared to the other 9 galaxies. This was related to the human race's bloodline talent. In the beginning, the human race was the weakest compared to the other 9 galaxies. However, the human race had an advantage. After stepping into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, they were more well-rounded and stronger in terms of combat strength. Moreover, as time passed and they reached perfection in their minor realms, their combat strength would become stronger and stronger. This was also the reason why the rulers of the human race were always the strongest in the 10 galaxies. Chun Hao and the other cultivators in the 10-direction territory were completely unaware of the situation in the 10-direction galaxy. Although Chun Hao had speculated that this was not a temporary alliance through the Golden Dragon Galaxy and the other 9 galaxies alliance to kill the human race in the 10-direction territory, it was premeditated and an agreement had been reached in the outside world. Moreover, the other party would not only target the 10-direction territory. There must be a series of actions. However, he did not expect the war in the 10 galaxies to break out so quickly and so early. Unfortunately, whether they knew or not, it was useless. Before they advanced to the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, they could not leave. Experts from the outside world could not enter. The only difference was, when the 9 Galaxies Alliance, including their rulers, saw that no one had triggered the heavenly punishment to step into the Hongming realm for more than 1,000 years, they all thought that the time was ripe to make a move. If they delayed any longer, the human race might sense the abnormality and be prepared. In their opinion, the Golden Dragon Galaxy, Lu Qianri, and the others had already controlled the entire 10-direction territory. After this, the human race would not have another Supremes of Hongmeng. Tyrant's Jin family. In the depths of the core palace, a figure sat cross-legged, exuding endless immortal light and down nomological pressure. His aged face and powerful aura would make any cultivator's heart palpitate. This was the Jin family's patriarch. More than 10,000 years ago, he was just one of the many top masters in the Tyrants. However, more than 10,000 years ago, he suddenly comprehended a supreme technique and became an existence that was on par with the ruler of the Chaos Galaxy and the Tyrants. Even the Tyrants' ruler was courteous to him and called him a brother. This time, he was the instigator of the 9 Galaxies Alliance in the 10-direction territory, and the 9 Galaxies war against the human race in the chaotic Grand Thousand World. Even the overlords of the Tyrants couldn't do such a thing. After all, no one in the 10 Galaxies would truly trust each other. It was even more impossible for them to form an alliance. After all, in such a situation, anyone would be worried that their galaxy would follow in the footsteps of the vast universe galaxy. However, the Jin family's patriarch did it. However, at this moment, the Jin family's patriarch, who was sitting cross-legged alone, frowned slightly, causing the wrinkles on his forehead to wrinkle even more. It's been 1,800 years. Why is there still no reaction? The Jin family's patriarch's aged voice muttered to himself. It doesn't take much time to comprehend the Hongmeng energy. The only thing that delayed it was refining the prototype of the Great World. Perhaps it's because of the huge harvest this time, so it needs to be refined more perfectly. Killing the humans of the vast universe galaxy should also take a lot of time. I'm overthinking. The Jin family's patriarch suppressed the little bit of uneasiness in his heart. No one knew that even Yi Lan would not be able to recognize this old man's true identity. The Xiao family's patriarch. Chapter 1083. The Xiao clan patriarch's 10th anima, Xiao Yan and Chen Hao, were both destroyed at the same time. However, this misfortune turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Thanks to Xiao Yan and Chen Hao's golden scales transforming into dragons, as well as the fluctuations of the Starry River Tunnel, he was able to gain enlightenment of the true 10th anima. But at that time, he had to quietly leave the Xiao family in the vast universe galaxy after Chen Hao and Xiao Yan died, because Yi Lan's nirvana was about to succeed. Once Yi Lan successfully recovered to his peak state, he was no match for Yi Lan and Chen Wuliang. He needed time. He needed to condense the true 10th anima. So he left. Moreover, he became the Jin family patriarch without much effort. With the 9 lives mystic technique, he had the ambition to unify the ancient chaos billions of years ago. The fusion and separation of the 9 lives were very simple. He had already paved the way. Except for the god race's innate physical body, which he could not condense, the other 8 lives were like the Gene family patriarch. They had great weight in the major galaxies and were top figures. This was also what he could do that the tyrants, or rather, any tyrants could not do, and that was to unite the 9 galaxies. The Golden Dragon was his 10th anima. 5,000 years ago, he was born in the tyrant's chaotic galaxy. In the Daluo Golden Wonderland, he was invincible and became the #1 person in the tyrant's Daluo Golden Wonderland. He was also known as the #1 Grand Luo in the ancient chaos vast thousand domains. Originally, the Xiao family patriarch's strength would soar if he directly fused, but this time he went all out. It was fine if he did not do it, but if he did, he would take it in one fell swoop. That was why the 9 galaxies were united, and the Golden Dragon was their leader. When the Golden Dragon stepped into the supremacy of Hongmeng, his strength would be heaven-defying if he fused. At that time he would not be able to kill Yi Lan, but he had absolute confidence in suppressing him. Yi Lan. If not for Yi Lan, he would have already unified the ancient chaos vast thousand domains. They had been rivals for so many years. Logically speaking, he should have understood Yi Lan thoroughly, but Yi Lan always gave him a feeling that he could not completely see through him. This was also the main reason why he had only fused with the 10th anima to advance to Paragon Hongmeng. In the 10 Directions domain, as long as the Golden Dragon refined the prototype of the macro world to the peak of perfection, he would be able to establish a connection with his original body, which had transcended the 10 Directions domain's heavenly design shield, without triggering the heavenly punishment. But now more than 1,000 years had passed, and there was still no connection between their auras. That was why he felt uneasy. However, after thinking about it for a while, he didn't care about it anymore. All he had to do was wait. When the Gold Dragon returned, when Hongmeng the Supreme of the humankind was almost dead, it would be time for him to join forces with the 9 galaxies and attack the divine palace of the humankind. Endless darkness, fragmented fragments. Without consciousness, without thinking, it was impossible for him to have any. To life, this was no longer life, but the fragments of the life imprint that had collapsed. It was just a weak strand of energy between heaven and earth. Its final fate was to merge with the most mysterious river of fate between heaven and earth, and recombine with the energy of the other life imprint fragments to form a life imprint. He would no longer be himself. After stepping into the endless cycle of reincarnation, even if he obtained a new life, it would have nothing to do with him. This was the end result of the destruction of both body and soul, or perhaps fate. In the macro world in Chunhao's mind, the little nurse Lu Hui was pale and sweating profusely. Every time she collapsed, she would recover to her peak state and start again. Even Chunhao, who had yet to fuse with the second anima, felt pity for her. Chunhao still didn't understand. He still couldn't sense any of the profundities of the law of divine ability that little nurse Lu Hui had condensed. However, he knew that with the little nurse's current cultivation base, using such a heaven-defying inherited divine ability would definitely cause extreme damage to her body. He felt pity for her, but he couldn't stop her. He couldn't give up, because he wanted his little brother to be resurrected. Pity, heartache, but Chunhao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The only thing he could help the little nurse was to condense the pure and boundless spiritual qi of heaven and earth to help her recover as quickly as possible. However, little nurse Lu Hui didn't care about this at all. Every time she collapsed, her only request was to receive a kiss from Chunhao, who had taken the form of his divine will, a kiss of care and care. Even if Chunhao was absent-minded and touched the surface of the water lightly, she would reveal a proud and happy smile, and her beautiful face would turn red. That expression, that satisfaction, that innocence, that infatuation. Chunhao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At the same time, he felt guilty and touched, especially when he thought of the little nurse Lu Hui's true identity, an immortal emperor. What did he do to make an immortal emperor, the incarnation of the spirit of all things, so attached and infatuated? He couldn't help but kiss her half-heartedly. After the little nurse collapsed again and again, it turned into an intoxicating kiss. The little nurse, who even knew how to bite and what not to say, didn't even know how to kiss. Every time, the clumsy but passionate response and the initiative to kiss were filled with infinite passion, as if it was the most wonderful thing in the world to her. This was a very inconceivable thing, at least in Chunhao's opinion. It was very inconceivable. Kiss, it was really just a kiss. How could it be as exciting as the first kiss every time? However, the little nurse's feelings couldn't be faked at all. Chunhao didn't understand, and it was impossible for him to understand. Lu Hui didn't know, and it was impossible for her to know. Billions of years, tens of thousands of lifetimes, endless reincarnation, thousands of galaxies, rolling in the mortal world just for... In the endless darkness, there was no time, no space and no laws. There was only endless darkness. Fragments that ordinary people couldn't sense, and couldn't sense, gradually gathered and fused together amidst the mysterious waves that cut through the 9 heavens and 10 earths. What was the nirvana of the true self? In front of this kind of mysterious summon, the gathering and reorganization of the life imprint was far from enough. The spirit of all things, the birth of all things in the world, the birth of the origin of life. In a trance, a faint wisp of consciousness slowly grew in the endless darkness. Brother, 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 I still want to be your brother, your biological brother. Brother. The fragments condensed into the first wisp of consciousness. In the weak consciousness it floated, circled, and repeated over and over again, calling out, Big brother. Brother. That was Chunhao's greatest obsession and greatest hope at the last moment of his life when his body and soul were destroyed. It was an obsession that cut through the 9 heavens and 10 lands, pierced through the endless galaxies, and shook the unpredictable heavenly Tao. Chunhao, his brother, had been his idol since he was young. He had always been chasing after him, but he had never caught up. He was very tired, but he had never given up hope. He could be slow, but he couldn't stop moving forward because he firmly believed that no matter how long it took, millions of years, or even tens of millions of years, as long as he could step onto the peak of martial arts, he would be able to reunite with his brother at the end, just like when he was a child, with his sister, with his brother, and together. Chapter 1084. However, he did not manage to wait for that moment. In the face of such a terrifying and unstoppable attack, how could he let his sister die? His sister was not only his brother's sister, but also his brother's woman. She was also his sister. His death in exchange for his sister's life was the best outcome. Sister, when your brother comes back, remember to tell him that I want to be his brother in my next life. That way, I might be able to catch up to him. Let him take revenge for me. Don't. Goodbye, sister. I'm sorry that I never had the ability to protect you. Brother, goodbye. Those were the last words he left behind in this world. With endless unwillingness and strong obsession, he burned himself and used his body and soul to block in front of his sister. In this world, other than the cultivation base at the peak of martial arts, what else could shake the unfathomable heavenly Tao? It was obsession, an obsession that could shake heaven and earth and connect the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Brother, brother. In the weak consciousness, there was a call that could only be sensed but not expressed. The young nurse, whose face was pale and covered in sweat, looked at Chunhao, who was formed by his divine sense. Lu Hui's face was covered in tears. Chunhao, who was formed by his divine sense, did not cry or shed tears. However, his transformed body trembled violently, trembled, until he could no longer control his emotions. He hissed and turned into a mental turbulence, dissipating in front of the young nurse, Lu Hui. Outside his mind, Chunhao, who was sitting cross-legged, cried. Boundless guilt, boundless heartache. Watching Xiao Nan's consciousness gradually condense and her soul origin gradually gather and recover, he should have been excited and happy. However, at this time, he only felt guilt and heartache. Big brother, big brother. The words big brother were like needles that pierced into his heart and soul. Brother? Did he fulfill his responsibility as a brother? Did he? Although it had always been the hand of fate that forced Chunhao to constantly move forward, and almost could not stop for a moment, it was not entirely his fault. But at this time, Chunhao could only blame himself deeply. Even though he had already sensed his younger brother sacrificing his life in the great thousand worlds of ancient chaos, shaking the heavens and shaking the earth and connecting the galaxies to pass on the Tao, the obsession in his mind had already caused him to go crazy and numb from the pain. However, at this moment, Chunhao still could not bear it. Chunhao, don't be sad, okay? Xiaonan will come back to life soon. Everything will be fine soon. Don't be sad. Okay? The nurse's soft but trembling voice echoed in Chunhao's mind. I'm not sad. I'm not sad at all. Girl, don't worry about me, continue. You're sad, and I'm heartbroken. Continue. I can't continue. How about you seal until you reach the second life? No need. After running away from it once, did he want to run away from it a second time? It's time for me to face it. I should have faced it long ago. I'm me, and I'm also me in my second life. The time to merge will come eventually. I'm fine. Don't try to sense me anymore. Continue. Chunhao closed his eyes. Suddenly he began to chant. The Sanskrit of the great Tao instantly drifted out from his mouth. However, at this moment, the lotus-blossoming tongue concept did not appear. Instead, there was only a dry grand Tao outline scripture that no one could understand or comprehend. However, Chunhao continued to chant faster and faster. His voice became louder and louder as he repeated it over and over again. Rumble, rumble, mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. In the end, Chunhao's voice became more and more terrifying and vast. Walking the great Tao alone, walking the great Tao alone, walking the great Tao alone. If this heaven, this earth, this heavenly Tao, this fate, must walk the great Tao alone in order to reach the peak of the great Tao, then why would I want the peak? I don't need it. If my brothers and sisters, family and friends all perish one by one, then what's the point of me reaching the peak of the great Tao? I don't need it. Walking the great Tao alone, I insist on walking it. After chanting for an entire month, Chunhao suddenly stood up amidst the collapsing mountains and cracking earth. He faced the sky and kowtowed. Following that, a long roar erupted, and the heavens and earth suddenly shook. Their expressions changed. Wind and clouds gathered. The great Tao is merciless, just like pigs and dogs. Chunhao pointed to the sky and cursed. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and the endless Tao laws suddenly gathered even more crazily. Heaven, earth, fate, heavenly Tao? Fuck your mother. Buzz. Roar. The heavens and earth seemed to be furious. The wind swept the clouds and night fell. If the heavens force me, I will pierce the heavens. If the earth force me, I will destroy the earth. Heavenly Tao, fate? What the fuck? Crack. Terrifying lightning and endless heavenly might came down mightily. At this moment, the little nurse in Chunhao's mind sensed Chunhao's condition and the aura of the outside world. She was already dumbfounded and had stopped all her actions. Her eyes were dull and her face was filled with horror. It was not Chunhao's vulgar curses, but the aura that Chunhao released at this moment. It was an aura that dominated the heavens and earth. No, it was an aura that looked down on the heavenly Tao. I am me. I want to be me. I want to be me. I want to follow my heart. I want to follow my will. No one can fucking control or manipulate me. Fuck off, you motherfucker. Break for me. Boom. The moment the lightning that seemed to contain the light of destruction came crashing down, Chunhao threw a punch toward the sky. Rumble. The fist light was extinguished and Chunhao was drowned in the endless lightning. Silence. No one heard it, not even Chunhao. The moment the light of destruction came crashing down, a terrifying fluctuation suddenly appeared between the brows of the stunned little nurse. Her eyes seemed to have changed into a different person in an instant. She became a supreme existence that looked down on the world and stood at the peak of the great Tao. Her cherry lips, which had kissed Chunhao many times, were still as excited as if it was her first kiss, coldly spat out two words: silence. With the macro world in Chunhao's mind as the core, a ray of light as black as ink spread out the moment the lightning of destruction came crashing down. In an instant, it enveloped Chunhao's entire body. After doing this, the little nurse directly fainted and fell into Chunhao's macro world in his mind. Rumble. The terrifying fluctuation swept across the entire 10-direction territory. What happened? At this moment, no matter which corner of the 10-direction territory they were in, whether it was Chen Shui, Hu Meinyang, Helian Wuxi, or other human clan cultivators hiding in a corner at the edge of the territory, they all looked up at the sky in horror. No one knew what had happened, but no matter how far away they were, the lightning that seemed to be able to destroy the world was imprinted in their eyes. The brief light of destruction only appeared for a moment, and then disappeared. The 10-direction territory also returned to normal in an instant, as if nothing had happened. In the place where Chen Hao pointed at the sky and cursed, and where Chen Hao collapsed, a ray of black light surrounded a 3-meter radius. Yes, only 3 meters, which was just enough to wrap around Chen Hao and not much space was left. When the heavenly might dissipated, this ray of black light also quickly dissipated as if it had never appeared. When the black light dissipated, Chen Hao's frozen consciousness was finally unobstructed. He got up with a dusty face and looked at the remaining aura of destruction around him in shock. Third update, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1085. What happened? Chen Hao felt refreshed, his thoughts were clear, and his meridians were flowing smoothly. His whole body was filled with an unprecedented essence, energy, and spirit, as if he had been reborn. However, apart from the terrifying aura of destruction in the world, he could no longer feel any heavenly Tao law. Unity of heaven and man, and drawing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth seemed to have become an extravagant hope. It was as if he was independent of heaven and earth, incompatible with heaven and earth, incompatible with all Tao's. Patter, patter, patter. Drops of cold sweat dripped from Chen Hao's forehead. Boom. After a long time, Chen Hao suddenly struck out with his fist, causing boundless Tao laws to roil and whistle. The ground that was already covered in ravines and was covered in desolation collapsed with a bang, and a fist print transformed into a mark of the Tao that emanated dazzling and profound crystalline lights. Phew! Staring at his peak state punch, Chen Hao's expression turned better. He took a long breath and said, "Motherfucker, my Tao, my own Tao. From now on, it will be my heavenly Tao. Comprehend you? Bah." Phew. That was close. Strong in appearance but weak in reality? Damn it, I was scared to death. Thinking of the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth that appeared before, Chen Hao felt a lingering fear. His brother, Chen Nan, aroused his deep self-blame and pain. He suppressed it strongly and recited the primary outline of Tao to calm his emotions. Then he fell into madness, blamed heaven and earth, and cursed loudly. Unknowingly, he entered a state of madness, pointed at the sky, and shook the heavenly Tao. His heaven-defying action led to the arrival of the world-extinguishing thunder. No. How could the world-extinguishing thunder dissipate without even touching me? After that, Chen Hao commanded in his heart. He instantly traversed a distance of 5,000 kilometers. When Chen Hao appeared once more, the laws of the heaven Tao and spirit energy of the heavens and the earth had suddenly recovered their liveliness, and he was able to sense it with a command in his heart. A wisp of divine sense immediately fused into the great world in his mind that he had sealed. In an instant, it arrived beside the young nurse Lu Hui. When Chen Hao saw the young nurse lying motionless on the ground, her face deathly pale, her essence qi spirit true essence, and even the heaven and earth spirit qi of this world extremely weak, Chen Hao's eyes trembled slightly. Then he waved his hand and sent out a beam of immortal light. Then a shadow appeared in front of him, tracing the origin and recording the past. In his mind he was the absolute ruler. Even if he didn't sense what had happened before, he could replay it with a wave of his hand. Extinction. Nirvana. Chen Hao saw the nurse's shock and horror. Then, as if he had suddenly become a different person, he crazily erupted, and a ray of pitch-black light bloomed from between his eyebrows, concealing heaven's secrets. Light of Nirvana. Chen Hao was unable to comprehend it, but combined with his own experience just now, he was able to deduce that it was the light of Nirvana emitted by the little nurse that blocked his aura, causing the terrifying world-extinguishing thunder punishment to dissipate into nothingness. Qi. 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 Chi. Chun Hao, who was drenched in cold sweat again, suddenly pointed at the little nurse. Majestic and pure energy poured down and surrounded her. Ah! A moment later, the little nurse screamed and woke up. The moment she opened her eyes were filled with boundless fear. However, when she saw Chun Hao, who was in the form of his divine sense, right in front of her, she immediately covered her small mouth. Chun Hao, you scared me to death. Do you know what you're doing? What am I doing? I don't know. I just saw that your aura seemed to have connected heaven and earth and transcended this place. I saw that the terrifying will of the heavenly Tao was about to annihilate you. You were fucking cursing the heavens. Luckily you're fine. The little nurse looked at Chun Hao with stars in her eyes and patted her plump chest as she spoke. Thank you. It seems like I've done something. Seems like it. But what's the use of thanking me? Let's do something practical. Okay. The little nurse suddenly screamed. When she reappeared, she was no longer in Chun Hao's mind but in the space of the 10-direction domain. In front of her, Chun Hao was looking at her with a smile. True body, true body. Chun Hao, I can't do this. I'm fine in there. A strand of my divine sense is still comforting you. When I come out, I'm separated. Wu smack. Chun Hao directly blocked the little nurse's words with his mouth and kissed her tender and beautiful lips fiercely. The little nurse was immediately dazed, although it was not much different from her divine sense. This girl was as excited as her first kiss. In addition, this was his true body. Naturally, she was so excited that she was dazed and blissful. In the future, every time I scold you, help me block it once. Fuck it until it loses its temper. One day, I'll be able to trample it under my feet. I'll ravage it however I want. Bullshit heavenly Tao. Woo! Chun Hao was in a good mood as he transmitted his voice to the little nurse's mind. The dazed little nurse even forgot to transmit her voice, and did not make a sound. Immediately, Chun Hao took the initiative to separate from her, but the little nurse was still unsatisfied. Okay, hurry up and recover. Continue to save Xiaonan. Hee. So you can't hold it in anymore. Ha. Fuck. Chun Hao's face instantly darkened. He cursed and directly sent the little nurse, who was trembling with laughter, into his mind. Immediately, he slapped between his legs. Fuck, can't you be more honest? Naturally, your reaction is a bit too intense. This was the difference between the divine sense and the true body. However, this was really not Chun Hao's fault. It would be strange if any man did not have a reaction after hugging and kissing a little beauty for a while. It could only be said that the little nurse Lu Hui was really too fierce. She dared to say anything, think anything, and even look at anything. Chi. With a flash of his body, Chun Hao once again used the great teleportation technique. In an instant, he returned to his original place and sat down cross-legged. This short change made Chun Hao's mood much better. The past was the past. He just had to grasp the present and not let any regrets happen. At the same time, this change also strengthened Chun Hao's Tao heart. His own Tao, his own heart, no one could shake it, not even the heavenly Tao. 50 years passed in the blink of an eye from the time they started to revive Chun Nan. Chun Yin was the first to rush back to Chun Hao's side. After 50 years, her body was emitting a strong murderous aura. Needless to say, her hands were stained with the blood of foreign cultivators. Who knew how many lives she had taken? When they estimated 60 years, which was 60 years, Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian Xiaoyu, Lung Ninghuan, Lung Ningle, Bailey Ningbing, Lan Feng, and the others all arrived. Even Chen Shui, Hu Meinyang and Pan Long, who did not know that they could revive Xiaonan when they left, also arrived. Obviously, they had met each other in the past few decades and received some information. The core members of Proud Heaven who were originally with Lan Feng did not return. They continued to lead human cultivators in a frenzy to hunt down foreign cultivators. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.